Poor girl was falsely accused of theft in the store where she worked. A millionaire who saw everything paid for the theft, then took her to his limousine. Hello, viewer. Thanks for joining us. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments, along with the city you're watching from. Now let's continue with the story. Amanda Hayes stood behind the polished marble counter at the Gilded Bean, fighting the urge to sigh as the cappuccino machine hissed. At 29, she looked composed in her crisp white apron, though the faint dark circles under her bright green eyes hinted at exhaustion. Her copper-colored hair, twisted into a practical bun, caught the overhead light every time she bent down to collect a fresh cup. The cafe was housed inside Belvedere's, an upscale department store on Fifth Avenue, where each morning streams of demanding customers ordered complex latte concoctions. For Amanda, this job had become more than just another paycheck. It was her only way to keep her small Queens apartment and continue her late-night studies in computer programming. She glanced at Mr. Henderson, the store's manager, lurking near a rack of glossy fashion magazines. He was in his 50s, with slicked-back grey hair and a perpetual scowl etched into his thin lips. Although he wore an immaculate suit, his attitude felt far less refined. Every so often, he would glare in her direction, almost as if he expected her to slip up. Amanda had learned to anticipate his perpetual criticisms, how she poured coffee too slowly, or how her polite smile lacked enthusiasm. She often wondered how someone could be so exacting about details, and yet so blind to human decency. Balancing a tray of steaming lattes, Amanda navigated around polished brass tables, careful not to bump into any of the high-end shoppers who sipped their espresso while chatting about weekend plans in the Hamptons. Despite the store's gleaming opulence, there was a chill to Belvedere's that Amanda felt acutely. She had grown up in a working-class neighborhood, raised by her grandmother after her parents' divorce. The idea of luxury had once fascinated her, but now she found it hollow. Day after day, she witnessed customers treat her like part of the furniture. She longed to escape, to be valued for her mind, rather than just her ability to serve a perfect mocha. Still, hope lingered quietly in her thoughts. By night, she studied online tutorials in coding, squinting at her laptop in the cramped corner of the bedroom she shared with her roommate, Maya. She had discovered a genuine passion for building websites and writing simple applications. Whenever she typed out lines of code, she felt an electric thrill, a sense that her future might look radically different if she could just hold on. She dreamed of a job in tech, a position where intelligence counted more than social status, yet she kept those dreams guarded, half afraid that speaking them aloud would shatter them. The morning rush finally slowed, and Amanda grabbed a moment to refill sugar bowls. She saw Henderson approach, his expression unreadable. Instinctively, her muscles tensed. He rarely had anything pleasant to say. "Hayes," he began curtly, "I saw you gaze off into space. Let's keep our focus on customer service, shall we?" Amanda bit her tongue and nodded. Forcing a respectful smile, she said, "Yes, Mr. Henderson, I'm sorry." He waved a dismissive hand, clearly uninterested in her apology. When her shift ended, Amanda slipped out the staff entrance into a narrow side hallway lined with stockrooms. She ran into Brenda, a fellow barista who was stuffing receipts into her apron pocket. Brenda's sharp stare traveled over Amanda from head to toe. "You got good tips again, didn't you?" Brenda snapped, nodding at the tip jar Amanda held. "You're so quiet, but people seem to like you. Must be nice, right?" Amanda hesitated. She never knew how to respond to Brenda's simmering jealousy, so she muttered something vague about being lucky before moving past her, eager to catch the subway home. That evening, in the modest Queen's apartment, Amanda found Maya sprawled on the couch watching a sitcom. Maya was 28, with cropped black hair and a lively demeanor that sometimes grated on Amanda's more reserved nature. "Hey," Maya called, muting the TV. "I was thinking we could go out this weekend. There's a new bar near Jackson Heights, supposed to have killer live music." Amanda sank into an armchair, hugging her laptop to her chest. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to feel carefree, but her mind returned to the programming courses waiting for her. "Maybe," she offered softly, "I just have so much to study." Maya rolled her eyes but shrugged in acceptance. "Girl, you're always studying," she teased. "One of these days you'll have to let loose." "But I get it. You have big dreams." Amanda appreciated Maya's attempt at understanding, though she often wished her roommate realized how exhausting it was to juggle hope and survival. In truth, Amanda felt stuck, caught between the need to pay rent and the hunger for a better life. Late that night, Amanda opened her laptop and reviewed lesson modules on JavaScript. Neon light from a street lamp outside flickered on the peeling bedroom wallpaper. The hush of the apartment pressed in on her. As she typed lines of code, she pictured a future beyond Belvedere's, an office with wide windows and colleagues who recognized her potential, a world where she could finally stand out instead of blending into the background. Still, doubts gnawed at her. She had once thought ambition alone could pull her forward, but each passing day under Henderson's rigid glare eroded her confidence. Did she really have what it took to break free from the low-wage loop? She prayed she wasn't fooling herself into chasing an impossible dream. Before climbing into bed, she glanced at her phone. A message notification blinked. Her online coding instructor, Dr. Carter, had sent an encouraging note about her last project submission. "Impressive progress, Amanda," he typed. "Keep pushing." She smiled, allowing a spark of determination to settle in her chest. Tomorrow, she would return to Belvedere's, face another wave of dismissive customers, and swallow Henderson's condescension, but she wouldn't let it define her. Beneath the monotony of brewing espresso and steaming milk, a quiet strength was growing, fueled by the belief that one day she would no longer be the invisible barista. She would be seen for the talent she held inside. Amanda's next shift began under the same humming fluorescent lights, but she felt an uneasy tingle at the base of her spine. Something was off. The day started with an unusual flurry of wealthy shoppers. They swept into Belvedere's wearing sleek designer coats, trailing expensive perfumes that lingered in the air. Amanda noticed them congregating near the pastry display, engrossed in a limited edition box of luxury macarons that had arrived for a promotional event. It was mid-morning when the tension in the cafe began to thicken. Standing behind the espresso machine, Amanda observed Mr. Henderson speaking in hushed, irritated tones to one of the store's supervisors. At first, she thought little of it, but his sharp glance toward her made her stomach twist. She tried to brush off the feeling by focusing on her latte art, a swan shape in the foam, something she'd practiced for weeks. Then came the woman in a vibrant silk scarf who approached the counter. She was juggling multiple shopping bags, along with a glossy box of macarons. "Miss, would you watch these for just a moment?" the woman asked hurriedly, placing the pastry box on the edge of the marble countertop. "I forgot my credit card at the fragrance counter." Amanda nodded, offering a polite smile. "Sure, ma'am." The woman dashed off, leaving the sweet-smelling box perched precariously amid the bustle of the cafe. A sudden bark of laughter caught Amanda's attention. Brenda stood in the corner, chatting with another co-worker. Her gaze flicked pointedly toward Amanda, and she said something that made the co-worker snicker. Amanda felt her cheeks warm. Although Brenda had never directly accused her of wrongdoing, the insinuations were constant. Amanda was quiet, so perhaps she was sneaky. She tried to ignore the remarks. Another order beeped on the register. Amanda took a breath and concentrated on finishing an Americano for a customer tapping impatiently on the counter. Moments later, the woman with the silk scarf returned, collected her macarons, and vanished into the crowd of shoppers. But as Amanda turned to restock the pastry display, Mr. Henderson approached, jaw tight. "Hayes," he said, scanning the cafe. "A customer just complained that her macarons disappeared. She claims to have left them here at the counter." Amanda blinked, confused. "But I just gave them back to her," she began, only for Henderson to cut her off with a raised hand. "We'll discuss this later," he muttered before walking away, leaving Amanda feeling strangely unsettled. Trying to regain her composure, Amanda served 2 more lattes, her mind racing. Had the woman been confused, or was there another box in question? It seemed like a harmless misunderstanding, yet Henderson's frosty demeanor suggested otherwise. Around lunchtime, the tension in the store escalated. Belvedere's main floor felt chaotic, with well-dressed customers weaving among perfume counters and designer handbags. Amanda's instincts told her that this was more than a simple miscommunication. "Have you noticed Henderson whispering with that security guard near the escalators?" Maya asked over the phone when Amanda took a quick break. Maya was at home, having taken a day off from her job at a small marketing firm. "No," Amanda replied softly, "but he's been giving me weird looks all morning." She bit her lip, recalling Henderson's disapproving stares. "I don't like this," Maya warned. "If something goes wrong, call me." By the time Amanda's shift ended, the tightness in her chest had only grown. She changed out of her apron in the cramped employee locker room, her fingers trembling. Brenda strolled in, flipping her blonde hair over her shoulder with a smug half-smile. "Word is, some expensive macarons vanished earlier," Brenda said, her tone light but her eyes cold. "You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" Amanda's stomach lurched. "And of course not," she managed, voice quavering with unspoken indignation. Brenda shrugged, a look of feigned innocence crossing her face. "Sure, just seems like every time there's a missing item, you're around." Amanda left quickly, ignoring Brenda's snide remark echoing behind her. She didn't have the energy to fight back. She stepped onto Fifth Avenue, the city's noise swallowing her. People rushed past, each consumed by their own errands. Amanda felt small, overshadowed by the towering buildings. She pulled her coat tighter around her, replaying the day's strange events in her mind. Surely the woman with the scarf had simply forgotten she reclaimed her macarons. But Henderson's behavior, Brenda's insinuations, and the uneasy ambience all pointed to a gathering storm. Amanda couldn't shake the sense that her life, so carefully balanced between day job and night studies, was tilting toward turmoil. Even as she boarded the subway home, the station lights reflecting off the scratched windows, her thoughts remained fixed on the swirl of tension at Belvedere's. She reminded herself to focus on what mattered, her coding lessons, her future. Still, a chill of foreboding spread through her. It was as though the city was whispering that something far bigger than a missing box of pastries was about to collide with her carefully maintained existence. She clutched her laptop bag, willing the train to hurry as it rumbled into the darkness, carrying her toward a tomorrow she could no longer predict. The following day, Amanda arrived at the Gilded Bean a full hour early, hoping the extra time might allow her to straighten out any lingering misunderstanding about the macarons. Yet, when she entered the store's main floor, she was greeted by a frosty silence rather than the usual morning bustle. Employees whispered among themselves, exchanging furtive glances in her direction. Mr. Henderson was nowhere to be seen, adding to her unease. She pulled on her apron in the back kitchen area, where pastries were stacked in neat rows under glass domes. The hiss of the milk steamer and the hum of the industrial fridge felt oddly menacing. As Amanda arranged cups on a tray, Brenda brushed past her with a smirk. "Heard Henderson's not in the best mood," she remarked in a sing-song voice. "Watch yourself, Amanda." Feeling her pulse quicken, Amanda tried to respond with calm. "I haven't done anything wrong," she said, but the shakiness in her voice betrayed her rising anxiety. An hour later, Henderson finally emerged, appearing even more agitated than usual. He strode past the register, ignoring several staff members who greeted him tentatively. Amanda forced herself to approach. "Mr. Henderson," she began, swallowing hard, "about the macarons." He gave her a steely stare. "We'll talk when the store opens," he snapped, cutting her off for the second time in 2 days. The possibility of a direct confrontation made her stomach clench. She recalled the landlord's warning about rising rent costs back in Queens. Losing this job would risk far more than embarrassment. It could derail her entire plan for a better life. She retreated behind the espresso machine, focusing on each order to quell her nerves. At times, her mind drifted to the same memory from childhood, standing helplessly in a classroom, accused of stealing another student's colored pencils. That humiliating moment left scars she thought she had buried, but the sting of an unjust accusation never fully faded, did it? By midday, the tension was unbearable. Henderson cornered Amanda near the pastry display, where a row of half-eaten samples lay scattered. "I'm tired of the rumors," he said in a low, charged tone. "Are you stealing merchandise from this store?" Amanda's breath caught. "No, absolutely not," she insisted. She tried to explain the misunderstanding with the woman's macarons, but Henderson merely narrowed his eyes. "Don't feed me stories," he hissed. "You've had your share of suspicious behavior, long breaks, disappearing from your station. I won't tolerate thieves." Before Amanda could protest, he pivoted on his heel and walked away. She felt a surge of anger mix with fear. Every ounce of her wanted to defend herself, to speak her truth, but she'd seen how he wielded his authority. One word from Henderson could seal her fate at Belvedere's, and she had no solid proof to dispute his insinuations. Shoulders trembling, she forced herself to continue frothing milk, plastering a steady facade for the next line of customers. After her shift, Amanda trudged home with a heavy heart. Maya found her seated at the small kitchen table, staring blankly at her laptop. "What's going on?" Maya asked, concern flooding her dark eyes. Amanda's voice wavered as she recounted the tense standoff with Henderson. "He practically called me a thief," she said, pressing her fingers against her temples. "He hasn't outright fired me yet, but I can feel it coming, and I'm scared." Maya pulled up a chair and placed a comforting hand on Amanda's arm. "You've done nothing wrong," she reassured. "Can't you talk to someone above him? Human resources." Amanda shook her head. "He's too entrenched. Everyone's terrified of crossing him. And HR might side with him unless I have concrete evidence. She paused, tears threatening to surface. "This job isn't my dream, but it's the only source of income I have until I can get into a real tech position. If I lose it, I lose my apartment, my chance to finish my certification courses, everything." Over microwave dinners, Maya tried to keep Amanda's spirits high, suggesting they gather statements from co-workers who had seen the woman retrieve her macarons. But Amanda explained that Brenda refused to corroborate, and others likely wouldn't risk Henderson's wrath by stepping forward. "It's so unfair," Amanda muttered, pushing her food around the plate, appetite lost. The truth was, she felt utterly alone against the weight of institutional authority. That night, she opened her laptop to the coding forum where Dr. Carter posted. In a private message, he asked about her progress. Amanda typed back in halting lines, describing the sudden stress at work. His reply arrived swiftly. "You have a gift. Don't let intimidation shut you down. Keep learning. Keep fighting." Those words flared a spark of defiance within her. She closed her eyes, recalling each humiliating instance in her past where she had backed down. This time, she told herself, She wouldn't remain silent forever, yet the next day loomed with dread. Henderson's accusations hung over her like a storm cloud, promising to unleash at any moment. All she could do was brace herself, uncertain of how close the tempest truly was. A restless wind swept through New York that morning, rattling the glass doors of Belvedere's. Amanda arrived to find the store in a state of charged expectancy. Something about the air prickled her nerves, like distant thunder rumbling before a storm. Even the doorman offered her a sympathetic nod, as though sensing trouble in her tense posture. Inside the Gilded Bean, the usual hum of customers felt oddly sharper. Amanda prepped espresso shots, keenly aware that every motion might be scrutinized. Henderson seemed to appear and disappear among the aisles like a phantom, occasionally stopping to mutter instructions to the staff. Brenda stayed just out of earshot, but threw mocking glances. Even long-time colleagues who had once been friendly now avoided meeting Amanda's eyes. She tried to focus on the mundane tasks, refilling sugar dispensers, wiping down the counters, perfecting latte foam art. Yet, her mind buzzed with the knowledge that rumors of theft had spread beyond the cafe. She overheard two clerks discussing a missing handbag incident in hushed tones, shooting suspicious looks toward her. Anxiety coiled tight in her stomach, threatening to overwhelm her composure. By midday, the tension felt suffocating. Amanda sneaked away to the staff break room, seeking a few minutes of calm. The space was cramped, lined with dented metal lockers. Maya's voice echoed through Amanda's phone earpiece as she explained the latest developments. "I've been asking around," Maya said. "No one has any real evidence against you. This is pure hearsay." Amanda sighed. "Henderson's turning the entire store against me. He only needs a scapegoat to blame if something goes missing." Her friend's frustration crackled over the line. "I still think you should lodge a formal complaint. This is workplace harassment." Yet Amanda hesitated. A formal complaint meant fighting an uphill battle in a corporate system that rarely sided with employees like her. And if she lost, she would be blacklisted from future retail jobs, even if she was pushing to leave the sector eventually. She'd spent her whole life treading carefully, trying not to upset those who held power over her. But the cost of that silence was mounting. As she ended the call and stepped back onto the main floor, she nearly collided with Mr. Henderson. He scowled at her, eyes flicking over her uniform. "You're late, returning from break," he snapped. She opened her mouth to explain, but decided it was pointless. Instead, she nodded, "I'll get back to work." The unspoken tension in his glare made her skin prickle. Something about the way he pursed his lips told her he was already planning his next move. Afternoon melded into early evening, and the store's fluorescent lighting seemed harsher than ever. An unsettling hush settled over the cafe, broken only by the clang of cups and the hiss of steaming milk. Brenda loitered by the condiment counter, tossing pointed looks in Amanda's direction. Amanda forced herself to remain busy, concentrating on tasks she could control. Just before closing, Mr. Henderson approached again with clipped steps. "Tomorrow is a busy day," he said tersely. "A VIP client is visiting, and I don't want any nonsense from you. Hayes, keep your head down or you're out." Amanda's cheeks flamed at the condescension. She swallowed any retort. Though anger simmered under her polite facade, she needed to pay rent. She needed to keep her job long enough to transition into her dream in tech. She would not let him break her, though the prospect of another day under his watchful suspicion sent her nerves into a spiral. That night, the unease followed her home like a shadow. She and Maya warmed leftover pizza, each too lost in thought to enjoy it. Maya tried to lighten the mood with talk of an upcoming concert. When that failed, she laid a hand gently on Amanda's shoulder. "He can't keep this up forever," Maya said softly. "Tomorrow might be rough, but you're stronger than you think." Amanda managed a faint smile, though her chest felt tight. She feared that the situation was only a hair's breadth away from catastrophe. Later, as Amanda flipped through her programming notes, the lines of code blurred. She shoved them aside and closed her eyes, feeling a headache bloom behind her temples. Her mind replayed Henderson's threats and Brenda's sneers. How had she let herself become this vulnerable, working a job where one petty manager's vendetta could destroy her livelihood? Yet every time she doubted herself, she recalled the flicker of ambition that had carried her this far, the laptop lessons, the late-night breakthroughs, the dream of forging a real career where she would no longer be looked down upon. Maybe she had to face a storm before she could finally see clearer skies. The clock neared midnight, and she crawled into bed, exhaustion tugging at her body. Even in the darkness, the swirl of dread persisted. She wondered if the next day would bring a chance to clear her name, or if it would finally push her into a corner she couldn't escape. Henderson's threats hung in the silence, like an ominous countdown. Amanda told herself to breathe, to hold on to the last shreds of hope. Tomorrow would be the pivotal test, and she had no idea if she'd pass or fail. Morning broke under grey skies and a persistent drizzle, the city's high-rises obscured by low-hanging clouds. Amanda arrived at Belvedere's feeling as though she was stepping onto a stage set for disaster. The store bustled with staff prepping for a VIP event, tablecloths smoothed over counters, crystal displays polished to a flawless sheen. Despite the hush of anticipation, an undercurrent of fear pulsed in every corner Amanda passed. At the Gilded Bean, Mr. Henderson stood by the pastries, arms folded. Amanda began her usual tasks, determined to keep her head down as instructed. Yet her heart pounded louder than the constant hiss of espresso machines. Then came the moment that would forever alter her path. A wealthy customer with an elaborately jeweled watch approached, juggling multiple shopping bags. She placed a small box of delicate macarons on the counter, rummaging in her purse to find her phone. The next seconds unfolded in a blur. A nudge from a passing customer, the box teetering on the edge, then tumbling behind the counter, right into Amanda's open handbag resting on the floor. Amanda gasped, stepping forward to retrieve the box, but the customer was already gone, presumably off to browse another display. She bent down, carefully lifting the slightly crumpled package from her bag. Her intent was to place it aside and wait for the customer's return. But at that instant, Henderson emerged, followed by Brenda. The manager's eyes locked onto the box in Amanda's hands. "What do you think you're doing?" he demanded, voice echoing across the cafe. The chatter of patrons dulled to a hush. "It fell!" Amanda stammered, adrenaline surging. She tried to explain, but Henderson cut her short. "I've warned you about stealing," he hissed, his tone carrying enough venom to make Amanda's stomach roil. Brenda, standing behind him, wore an expression of triumph. "I just found it in my bag," Amanda insisted, shaking. "I wasn't stealing." Henderson snatched the box from her grip and pointed toward the store's security guard, who was already closing in. "We've had enough rumors," Henderson proclaimed in a loud, clear voice. "I'm not tolerating a thief in this establishment." The word thief hung in the air like a deafening siren. Customers, wide-eyed, gathered around, and Amanda felt her cheeks burn with humiliation. Her throat constricted so painfully that she could barely speak. The security guard loomed, pulling out a small notepad. Amanda was certain he was seconds away from calling the police. A wave of helplessness swept over her. This was exactly what she had feared, only far worse, a nightmare playing out before an audience. Suddenly, another voice cut through the tension. "Excuse me," it said, quietly but firmly. A tall man in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit stepped forward. He had short dark hair, a clean-shaven face, and strikingly intense eyes. His presence exuded a calm authority, as if he were used to navigating emergencies. I saw what happened, he continued, raising a hand to halt the security guard. The box fell into her bag by accident. Henderson sneered, ignoring the stranger's testimony. And you are? The man met his gaze without flinching. Brian Sterling. The name seemed to ring a bell for a few onlookers, though many were too wrapped up in the drama to connect the dots. Henderson, though, appeared momentarily disarmed. I'm paying for these macarons, Brian Sterling announced, removing a sleek black wallet from his inside pocket. He handed a bill to Henderson, who opened and closed his mouth like a fish out of water. There, Brian said, turning to Amanda with a reassuring nod. She owes you nothing, and you owe her an apology. Henderson stared, red blotches creeping up his neck. Yet he didn't dare openly defy a man who radiated wealth and influence. The security guard lowered his notepad, uncertain what to do. Amanda's entire body trembled as she attempted to steady her breathing. In a matter of seconds, she had gone from near panic to shock. Who was Brian Sterling to intervene like this? Without giving Henderson a chance to retort, Brian gently touched Amanda's elbow. Are you all right? He asked, softly. Before she could respond, he added, Let's step outside. The hush that fell over the cafe felt surreal, with employees and customers alike gawking. Amanda's cheeks burned, but for once, it wasn't only shame. There was also a sense of sheer disbelief that someone was actually taking her side. She allowed Brian to guide her through the throng of onlookers, her apron feeling oddly heavy around her neck. Henderson's furious expression followed them, but no further accusations escaped his lips. They exited the rotating doors and stepped onto the rainy sidewalk. Parked at the curb was a sleek black limousine, its engine purring softly. Brian inclined his head toward the vehicle. Please, he said, his tone kind but resolute, get in. Let's talk somewhere calmer. Amanda hesitated. Part of her balked at the idea of climbing into a stranger's limousine. Another part was too stunned and too grateful to refuse. With the eyes of Belvedere's staff still on her, she slipped into the plush back seat, the interior warm and smelling faintly of leather. Brian Sterling followed, quietly shutting the door. In an instant, the din of the city was muted, replaced by the hum of the limo engine. Amanda realized her hands were trembling in her lap. She looked up at the man who had just rescued her from a humiliating scene, searching for words to thank him or to demand answers. Yet all she managed was a whisper of disbelief. Why would you do this? Brian's unwavering gaze met hers. Because I saw the truth, he replied simply, signaling the driver to pull away. And with that, Amanda Hayes left Belvedere's behind in a blur of rainy glass, her heart pounding at the threshold of a world she never knew awaited her. Amanda could feel her heart pounding as the limousine pulled away from Belvedere's. Soft, ambient music played at low volume, and the plush interior wrapped her in a cocoon of leather seats and warm lighting. She was aware of every breath she took, every rustle of her slightly damp apron. Outside, Fifth Avenue glistened under the light drizzle, busy shoppers unaware that her life had just turned upside down. Brian Sterling, seated across from her, exuded a calm confidence that made her both grateful and wary. He was on his phone, murmuring instructions to someone named Marcus, presumably an assistant or driver. The faint reflection of streetlights on the tinted windows painted fleeting patterns on his suit. Amanda sat stiffly, her hands in her lap, unsure of what to say or how to act. It wasn't every day she found herself rescued by a man who wore an air of power as naturally as breathing. When Brian ended the call, he turned his full attention to her. "How are you holding up?" he asked, voice steady, as if they were old friends. Amanda swallowed, her mouth suddenly dry. "Honestly, I'm not sure," she replied, forcing a slight smile. Thank you. I have no idea why you would step in like that. Brian lifted a shoulder in a small shrug. I witnessed an injustice. Let's call it that. I don't like seeing someone humiliated for something they didn't do. His words sparked a sudden wave of emotion in Amanda. She had been on the verge of tears in front of Henderson, but now she simply felt numb. I appreciate it, she managed to say, but you hardly know me. It can't be good for your reputation to side with someone like me. She hated how small and insecure she sounded, but the truth gnawed at her. A man of Brian's stature had no obvious reason to defend her. She wondered if he expected some kind of favor in return. Brian studied her carefully. My reputation will be just fine. I'm more concerned about what happens next for you. That manager looked ready to call the police. His gaze flicked to the raindrops sliding down the windows. People like that, they rely on intimidation. It's possible he'll only double down unless we clear your name or get you out of there. Get me out, Amanda repeated, surprised at the certainty in his voice. I don't have another job lined up, and I can't exactly just quit. My rent, my bills. She trailed off, embarrassment staining her cheeks. She could handle daily life on her own, until today, that is. But even the slightest threat to her job had always felt like a step off a precarious ledge. Brian leaned forward, hands loosely folded. First, I'm not offering charity. I have resources. Yes, but more importantly, I might have contacts who can open doors for you. I know you're not just a barista, Amanda. He nodded toward her apron. You carry yourself with a certain poise. And I overheard you discussing coding with one of your co-workers last week. Amanda blinked, taken aback that he'd been observing her. I'm in the tech industry, he explained. I notice when someone speaks about programming languages, even in passing. Her mind spun, so he'd been there before, quietly observing. She sensed no malice in his tone, just a direct approach that unsettled her usual defenses. I do study coding, she admitted hesitantly, but it's a long shot. I'm nowhere near qualified for a real tech job. Brian seemed unconvinced. Let me be the judge of that. My company, Sterling Innovations, invests in startups and fosters new talent. We might find a place where you can grow. Amanda's pride prickled at the idea of relying on him, but the memory of Henderson's accusatory glare was too fresh. If she stayed at Belvedere's, she risked more public humiliation, or worse. Another glance around the limousine reminded her of the stark contrast between her world and Brian's. Did she have the right to reject an opportunity just because her pride felt bruised? How about we find somewhere to talk this through, he suggested, picking up on her silence. Grab a coffee, properly this time, where you're not the one serving. Amanda let out a short laugh despite her jitters. A moment later, the driver's voice came through the intercom, asking for a destination. Brian looked to Amanda expectantly. She wasn't prepared for fancy restaurants or business lounges right now. I live in Queens, she began, then stopped. Her cramped apartment with Maya probably wasn't the ideal place. Brian offered a reassuring smile. I know a quieter cafe in Midtown. It's casual, but out of the spotlight. That felt more manageable. Amanda nodded, pressing her lips together in acceptance. As the limo navigated through afternoon traffic, she texted Maya with shaky fingers. I left Belvedere's. Something big happened. I'm safe. We'll call soon. Maya's response was immediate. What do you mean left? Where are you? Amanda sighed. She'd have to explain everything, but not yet. Right now, she had to focus on the conversation that could reshape her life. When they arrived at a small but elegant coffee shop near Bryant Park, the driver opened the door, and Brian stepped out first, offering Amanda his hand. She took it warily and emerged to face a swirl of people in business suits and tourists clutching umbrellas. The cafe's sign read Oak and Ivy, its dimly lit interior promising a respite from the rain. Inside, Brian led her to a corner table, gesturing for her to sit. The barista, this time not Amanda, smiled and took their orders. With the gentle hum of jazz playing overhead, Brian settled back in his seat. "Let's start by discussing your options," he said. "No strings, no pressure, just honesty." Amanda swallowed hard. She gazed down at her hands, still faintly trembling, and then met his eyes. While doubt fluttered in her chest, a fresh spark of hope flickered beside it. She might not know Brian's full intentions yet, but for the first time in a long while, she sensed a crack in the walls trapping her. Maybe, just maybe, this was the first step toward the future she'd only dared to imagine. Sitting across from Brian in the warm glow of oak and ivy, Amanda carefully cradled her cup of tea. The day's turmoil still felt surreal, but the cafe's laid-back atmosphere provided a small sense of security. When she finally looked up from the steam curling above her drink, she found Brian watching her with quiet concern. "Feel free to ask whatever's on your mind," Brian offered gently. Amanda released a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "Why help me?" she asked, direct. "I'm grateful, truly. But you must have better things to do than rescue strangers from false accusations." A flicker of a smile curved Brian's lips. "I'm not sure rescue is the right word. More like stepping in to right a wrong. As for my reasons, I've been in situations where people judged me unfairly. I know how it feels to be cornered by assumptions." His answer surprised her. She hadn't expected vulnerability from a man who appeared so self-assured. Amanda took a sip of tea, gathering her thoughts. "Well, thank you," she said simply. "That scene back there. I've never felt so exposed." Her voice quivered at the memory of Henderson shouting "thief" in front of everyone. Brian nodded. "Yes, I saw how that manager handled things. I had to say something, and now that we're here, maybe we can figure out the next steps." Amanda shifted in her seat. "I can't go back to Belvedere's, can I?" Brian's gaze was steady. "I doubt it would be healthy for you," he replied. "Even if they don't press charges, the environment is toxic." "But you said you study programming at night. How far along are you?" Amanda shrugged lightly. "I've done a few online projects, some basic web dev, some scripting. I'm nowhere near a professional level, though." Brian seemed to consider her words. "I happen to know a startup founder who values self-taught coders, especially ones with practical skills. If you want, I can set up a meeting. Let them decide if you fit the role." Amanda's initial response was to shake her head, disclaiming her own readiness. Yet, part of her was intrigued. "I wouldn't want to take advantage," she murmured. "I mean, we just met." "You're not taking advantage," Brian clarified. "I'm just opening a door. You'll still have to walk through on your own merit." Something about his tone gave her permission to trust him a little more. Her doubts remained, but the alternative, staying stuck in a humiliating job or unemployed, felt worse. Just then, her phone buzzed on the table. Maya's name flashed on the screen. She'd promised to call, so she muttered an apology to Brian and answered. "Amanda!" Maya nearly shouted into the phone. "Where are you? Are you okay? You said you left the store. Did Henderson fire you?" Amanda winced, looking around the cafe. "I'm safe. I'll explain later, I promise. But I'm with someone who helped me, a man named Brian Sterling. No, it's not weird," she added quickly, hearing Maya's gasp. "I'll be home soon, I promise." By the time she hung up, her cheeks were flushed from Maya's barrage of questions. Brian raised a curious eyebrow. "Maya is my roommate," Amanda explained. "She's, protective." He nodded, seemingly amused. "That's a good friend to have, especially in a place like New York." Amanda's lips twitched in agreement. For all her sometimes superficial commentary, Maya truly cared about her well-being. They talked for another hour, discussing Amanda's learning path and what a potential job interview might look like. Brian told her about his own early years as a startup founder, the late nights, the constant fear of failure. Amanda found herself leaning forward, fascinated. She'd never imagined someone as successful as Brian facing self-doubt. His tales of building sterling innovations from scratch were surprisingly grounded. "I made plenty of mistakes," he admitted, "but each one taught me a lesson." When they finally stepped back out into the rain, a new sense of possibility mingled with the damp air. "Let me have my assistant arrange a meeting with that startup," Brian said as they walked to his waiting limousine. "In the meantime, do you have enough savings to get by without working at the cafe?" Amanda hesitated, swallowing a wave of embarrassment. "Not really," she confessed. "I live paycheck to paycheck, but I'll figure something out. Maybe I can pick up temp work somewhere else." Brian opened the limo door for her. "Well, consider me an ally," he said. "I'm not offering handouts, but if you need a reference or if you need anything that helps you focus on your next opportunity, you have my number." Amanda's heart squeezed with a mix of relief and gratitude. "Thank you," she managed, stepping inside. She had never expected such generosity from a man whose world was so far removed from hers. Before dropping her off in Queens, Brian offered one final reassurance. "You don't have to decide anything right now," he said. "But I hope you'll let me know how I can help, beyond just giving you a ride home." Amanda nodded, still half in disbelief. As the limousine wove through busy streets, she realized that all her careful planning, her nightly coding sessions, her low-profile approach at Belvedere's had collided with a single dramatic incident, and from that chaos, Brian Sterling emerged as a most unlikely ally. When the vehicle stopped at her apartment building, she paused before getting out. "Brian, I really appreciate everything." His slight smile was genuine. "I'm rooting for you, Amanda Hayes," he replied. "I have a feeling you're going to surprise yourself and everyone else." With that, she climbed out into the drizzling night, watching as his limousine vanished down the street. A swirl of conflicting emotions welled in her chest. She was anxious, hopeful, and still a bit suspicious. Yet she couldn't deny that a door had opened. Now she had to decide whether to walk through. Amanda paced the small living room of her Queens apartment, the overhead light casting stark shadows on the worn carpet. Maya perched on the couch, arms crossed, watching her with concern. "I still can't wrap my head around it," Maya said for the third time that evening. "One minute you're about to get arrested, the next some wealthy tech mogul is swooping you into a limo like a scene from a movie." Amanda paused mid-step, pressing her hands to her temples. "Trust me, I'm having trouble believing it too." She recounted the entire incident again. The accusation, Brian's calm intervention, the hush that fell over Belvedere's as he paid for those silly macarons. Maya's expression shifted from worry to a mix of excitement and wariness. "This could be a real opportunity," Maya conceded, "but you have to be careful. You don't know him." "I know," Amanda agreed, exhaling slowly. "He mentioned a startup he could connect me with. It sounds almost too good to be true, but then again, maybe that's just my cynicism. Henderson always made me feel like I'd never escape that cafe." She sank onto the couch beside Maya, hugging a pillow. "I want to take the chance, but I'm terrified." Maya rested a reassuring hand on Amanda's knee. "Look, you've been working tirelessly on coding projects. You're talented. If Brian's contact sees that, it's not charity, it's recognition. Worst case, you go for the interview and see what happens. There's no harm in trying." The simple logic soothed some of Amanda's anxiety. She nodded. Maya offered a small grin. "And if he turns out to be some creep, You have me to call the cops, but he doesn't sound creepy, just powerful." Amanda gave a tiny laugh, her mood lifting. In that moment, her phone buzzed. A text from Brian. "Hope you're settling in. Should I arrange an interview with Innovate Solutions?" She reread the message twice, heat rising in her cheeks. It felt surreal to have direct contact with someone like him. Maya caught her reading the text and gave an encouraging nod. So Amanda typed back, "Yes, please. I'd appreciate the chance." The next morning, she woke to find Brian had already set things in motion. An email from Innovate Solutions' HR department invited her to interview for a junior developer position. The date was just 3 days away. Her stomach fluttered. She hardly had time to recover from the drama at Belvedere's, yet here she was, standing at the edge of an opportunity she'd dreamed about. She spent the rest of that day drafting a resume that highlighted her self-taught programming work, triple-checking every detail. By the time the interview day arrived, Amanda stood on the sidewalk outside Innovate Solutions' glass entrance, heart pounding so loudly she could feel it in her ears. The building loomed 10 stories tall, modern and vibrant, a stark contrast to the stuffy opulence of Belvedere's. She smoothed her skirt, pushed open the door, and approached the reception desk. A friendly-faced receptionist greeted her. "You must be Amanda Hayes," the woman said warmly, directing her to a waiting area with bright orange chairs and a wall-mounted screen cycling through the company's latest app demos. Amanda used the moment to inhale deeply, centering herself. Then a man in his late 20s with a casual plaid shirt approached. "Amanda?" "Hi, I'm Brandon, one of the lead developers. Come on back." The office was open concept, scattered with colorful beanbags and half-finished prototypes. A few employees glanced up, nodding politely as Amanda passed. The energy was a world away from the rigid, hierarchical environment she'd endured at Belvedere's. For the next hour, Amanda fielded questions about her coding projects, her approach to problem-solving, and how she taught herself. She explained the time she'd built a simple budget tracking tool for Maya, or the personal website she'd coded from scratch. Brandon seemed genuinely interested, leaning forward with an eager grin. "We love self-starters," he said at one point. "Sometimes we find they bring fresh perspectives we don't get from traditionally trained developers." When the session concluded, Brandon escorted her to the HR manager, SRA Lee, for a final chat. With keen eyes and a calm demeanor, Sir Lee asked about Amanda's career goals. Amanda spoke honestly about wanting to break into the tech field to solve real problems and escape the cyclical grind of dead-end jobs. She tried to keep her voice steady, though anxiety nipped at her. Sir Lee made some notes and nodded. "We appreciate authenticity here. We'll be in touch within the week." Walking out of Innovate Solutions, Amanda felt as though she were floating. She replayed the conversation in her head, dissecting every response, every smile. Could she really succeed in a place like this? She dared to hope. Yet a corner of her mind reminded her of the precariousness of life, especially after the fiasco at Belvedere's. She texted Maya a quick update, then paused, debating whether to message Brian. Before she could overthink it, she typed, "Interview done. Went well, I think. Thank you." His reply came almost instantly. "Proud of you. Let me know if you need anything." Amanda stared at the words, a flutter warming her chest. She tried not to read too much into them, but something told her Brian was more invested in her success than he let on. That evening, after returning home, she balanced her laptop on her knees and reviewed coding concepts to calm her nerves. Maya bustled around, making dinner, peppering her with questions about the office. Despite lingering worries about Henderson's gossip, the possibility of failure, Amanda felt something she hadn't in a long time: genuine excitement. She had dived headfirst into the unknown, and she wasn't drowning. For once, she believed she might be able to swim. 2 days after the interview, Amanda's phone buzzed with an unknown number. Her stomach tightened, expecting it to be Innovate Solutions with an update. Instead, Brenda's sharp voice echoed when she picked up. "So I hear you think you're too good for us now," Brenda sneered. Amanda nearly ended the call on instinct. She owed Brenda nothing, especially after the way her colleague had spread rumors. Still, curiosity got the better of her. "What do you want, Brenda?" A disdainful laugh crackled over the line. "Word around the cafes that you left in a fancy car with some billionaire. Mr. Henderson is livid. He's telling anyone who'll listen that you conned that guy into paying for your mess." Amanda felt her pulse spike. She couldn't say she was surprised. Henderson had always twisted facts to fit his narrative. She swallowed. "I didn't con anyone," she replied, voice shaking with a combination of anger and anxiety. "I was falsely accused, and a customer, Brian, saw what really happened." Brenda made a clucking sound. "Sure. Either way, Henderson's telling people you got that job interview by manipulating some rich man's pity." Amanda's grip on the phone tightened. "That's ridiculous, and it's none of his business." She thought of the humiliating spectacle at Belvedere's, how Henderson had practically spat the word thief at her. Brenda sighed theatrically. "Hey, I'm just letting you know. People talk. You might want to watch your back, honey." After hanging up, Amanda found her hands trembling. Anger bubbled at Henderson's continued harassment, but also fear. She worried that if Innovate heard these rumors, it could jeopardize her chance at a new start. She called Maya at work, her voice unsteady as she recounted Brenda's news. Maya cursed under her breath. "Henderson's a weasel. He has no real power outside Belvedere's, but he can spread gossip. You need to keep your focus. If Innovate calls with good news, great. If not, you'll apply somewhere else. Don't let Henderson live rent-free in your head." Amanda exhaled a shaky breath. Maya was right. She forced herself to concentrate on her next steps, finishing a coding assignment, polishing her GitHub portfolio. She also found herself worrying about how this might affect Brian. Was he aware that Henderson was spinning a story of seduction or con artistry? The thought made her cringe. Early that evening, she busied herself by reorganizing the living room. She wanted something, anything, to distract from the anxiety. The doorbell rang, startling her out of her thoughts. She opened it to find a delivery person holding a plain envelope. "For Amanda Hayes," he said. She signed for it, puzzled. Inside the envelope was a letter from Innovate Solutions, welcoming her as a junior developer intern, pending a final background check. Amanda let out a cry of excitement. She'd done it. She had a new job lined up. Her emotions seesawed between joy and relief, the sting of Henderson's rumors momentarily forgotten. She texted Brian the news. "They offered me the position, intern basis. Thank you for the reference." Just minutes later, he replied, "I'm thrilled for you. You earned it, Amanda. Let's celebrate. Dinner soon." She read the message with a jolt of surprise. Dinner. Her mind spun with conflicting impulses. She typed back a cautious acceptance. Sure, that sounds nice. That night, Amanda and Maya shared a modest celebration at home, toasting with cheap sparkling water. Maya teased her about Brian's dinner invitation, but Amanda felt uneasy. While she appreciated Brian's help, she feared stepping into a world of swirling wealth and gossip. "Just be you," Maya advised, popping open a bag of chips. "Don't overthink it. He clearly respects your drive, not your ability to pour a latte." A few days later, Amanda found herself at a small, upscale restaurant near Union Square. The place had warm lighting and a refined menu, but it wasn't showy. Brian was already seated when she arrived, standing politely to greet her. "Congratulations on the internship," he said with a genuine smile. Once seated, Amanda marveled at how natural conversation felt. They discussed her upcoming start date at Innovate, his current projects at Sterling Innovations, and random anecdotes about life in New York. Still, a flicker of tension hovered in her mind. She couldn't forget Brenda's call or Henderson's possible vendetta. Midway through their meal, Brian leaned forward, reading her concerned expression. "You look troubled," he noted. "Something on your mind." Amanda toyed with the edge of her napkin. "Henderson's been spreading rumors," she admitted quietly, "saying I manipulated you, or that I'm some kind of gold digger. I don't want that affecting your reputation or Innovate's decision." Brian's face hardened momentarily. "Henderson can say whatever he wants. People who know me won't believe it, and if Innovate did a thorough interview, they believe in your skills. Lies die in the face of genuine results." He paused, his voice gentler. "But I understand your worry. I might be able to help." Amanda's brows furrowed. "Help how?" He met her eyes. "I have some contacts at Belvedere's, business relationships that predate Henderson's tenure. I can ask a few discreet questions about how he's handling staff or see if others have complaints." Amanda blinked, stunned by his proactive stance. "That sounds like more trouble for you," she protested. "I don't want you risking your business ties on my account." Brian waved off her concern. "I don't tolerate bullies. If Henderson is mistreating employees or lying, the truth deserves to come out. Let me look into it." Part of Amanda felt relief. Another part worried that this would escalate into a full-blown confrontation. She recalled how traumatizing that public accusation had been. "Thank you," she said at last, voice soft. "Just, please be careful." His expression softened. "Of course. And you, focus on your new journey at Innovate. Don't let Henderson overshadow your achievement." The reassurance in his tone melted some of her anxiety. They finished dinner talking about lighter subjects, a shared love of certain novels, the best pizza spots downtown, and humorous mishaps from Brian's early coding days. Amanda left the restaurant with a buoyant feeling in her chest, tempered only by the knowledge that Henderson and Brenda loomed on the periphery. But at least she didn't face them alone. In Brian, she had found an unlikely ally, and, perhaps, the beginnings of a true friendship. Amanda's first week at Innovate Solutions was a whirl of new information. Each morning, she'd arrive at the sleek reception area, badge in hand, and greet the front desk staff who already recognized her face. She was introduced to a handful of fellow junior developers, who were a blend of college grads and self-taught coders. The environment brimmed with creativity, vibrant energy coursing through every brainstorming session. She spent her days absorbing the company's frameworks, coding standards, and product goals. Some tasks were challenging enough that she found herself awake late at night, studying documentation or watching online tutorials to fill gaps in her knowledge. But each hurdle she cleared, each snippet of code she perfected, reminded her how far she'd come since those days at the Gilded Bean. One afternoon, Srey Lee walked by Amanda's desk, pausing to offer a smile. "How are you settling in?" she asked. Amanda swallowed her nerves. "Well, I think everyone's been helpful." The HR manager nodded approvingly. "Keep up the good work. I've heard positive feedback already." After she walked away, Amanda allowed herself a small fist pump under the desk. Positive feedback. She couldn't remember the last time she'd received that from someone in authority. Outside of work, Amanda's bond with Brian continued to grow in small, steady ways. He would text her casually, asking how she liked the new role, or sharing a news article about tech developments. Their conversations always felt easy, unforced. She caught herself smiling whenever she saw his name on her phone, though she pushed aside the flutter of warmth that rose in her chest. They were just allies, right? Then, on a Thursday evening, Brian invited her to dinner again. This time, she chose the spot, A lively Italian restaurant in a less touristy corner of Manhattan. The checkered tablecloths and cozy lighting instantly put her at ease. They talked about her first week, the excitement of building new software features, and the minor annoyances of debugging code. Brian listened attentively, occasionally sharing insights from his experiences. Between bites of pasta, Amanda asked about his own schedule. "I feel like you're always flying off to meetings or overseeing big projects. How do you find time for these dinners?" Brian chuckled softly. "Honestly, I didn't used to. Before meeting you, my routine was all about work, deals, and expansions. But I've been trying to remember there's more to life than conference calls." The statement caught her off guard. Did that mean she had become something of a respite for him? A reminder of simpler connections? As the meal wound down, Brian broached the subject of Henderson's activities. "I've been doing some digging," he said, keeping his voice low even though the restaurant chatter was lively. "A contact of mine at Belvedere's mentioned that Henderson might have a history of questionable behavior. Complaints get swept under the rug because he's charming to certain execs and never leaves a trace in writing." Amanda frowned. It didn't surprise her, but hearing the confirmation made her chest tighten. "So what now?" Brian drummed his fingers on the table, brow furrowed in thought. "I'm not sure yet. But if we can gather concrete evidence of his bullying or false accusations, we could approach the higher-ups at Belvedere's or even the Labour Board. I just have to be sure any move we make is backed up by facts." A flicker of guilt rose in Amanda. She felt safer at Innovate now, but what about the co-workers she'd left behind? "I don't want others to suffer like I did. Still, the idea of confronting him again makes my stomach churn." Brian reached for her hand, his touch gentle. "We'll do this carefully. No hasty moves." Amanda's heart gave a traitorous flutter at the contact. She nodded, retrieving her hand self-consciously, trying to calm the sudden rush of warmth in her cheeks. "Thank you," she murmured. Outside, the city lights glittered against a velvet sky. They stood on the sidewalk, a comfortable silence between them. "I could give you a ride home," Brian offered, gesturing to his waiting car up the block. Amanda hesitated, glancing around at the bustling street. Part of her enjoyed riding in that luxurious car, feeling briefly removed from everyday worries, but she also wanted to keep her independence. "It's okay," she said. "I'll grab the subway." "I've got to keep it real," she added with a small grin. Brian laughed, his expression warm. "Fair enough." Before they parted, Brian gently brushed her arm. "Amanda, I'm proud of you, you know. You walked into a whole new world at Innovate, and you're handling it better than some seasoned professionals. Don't forget that." His words sent a pulse of gratitude through her. For so long, she'd been invisible, just another barista behind the counter. Now she stood at the cusp of something brighter. She nodded, unsure of how to convey her thanks. "I appreciate everything," she said. "I really do." Brian's smile was soft in the glow of the street lamp. "Have a good night, Amanda." She watched as he turned to walk toward his car, the faint outline of the driver stepping forward to open the door. The swirl of city air carried a hint of diesel fumes mixed with distant music. Amanda inhaled deeply, letting the moment imprint itself in her mind. As she rode the train back to Queens, she replayed their conversation. The mention of Henderson still weighed on her, but overshadowed by a deeper sense of connection. She recognized she was on the brink of something significant, both professionally and personally. The official lines between gratitude, friendship, and the stirrings of romantic attraction were beginning to blur. Perhaps that was the cost of letting someone in after years of isolation. Either way, she felt undeniably alive, and for the first time she embraced the uncertainty with cautious hope. Amanda's new routine at Innovate Solutions had settled into a steady rhythm. Coding tasks, team stand-ups, quick lunches at the office cafe. On most evenings, she would return home feeling equal parts exhausted and fulfilled. Each successful push of new code or positive note from her supervisor, Brandon, reminded her she was on the right path. Even so, the spectre of her abrupt exit from Belvedere's lingered at the edges of her mind, like a half-formed shadow she couldn't quite dispel. Late one afternoon, Amanda was at her Innovate desk, polishing up code for a prototype. Her phone buzzed with an incoming number she didn't recognize. Normally, she would ignore a random call while in the midst of work, but a wave of anxiety compelled her to pick up. "Hello," she said softly, keeping her voice low in the open office environment. Silence, then a muffled sniffle. "Amanda, it's Gabby. I hope this isn't a bad time." Amanda froze, her heart jolting at the mention of Gabby. They had been casual friends at Belvedere's. Gabby worked in cosmetics on the same floor, yet they hadn't spoken since the day Amanda left. "Of course not. Is everything okay?" Amanda asked, saving her work before stepping into a quiet hallway. Gabby's voice trembled. "Henderson's been on a rampage. Everyone's on edge. Last week he wrote me up for being late even though I was on time." She paused. "And now he's dropping your name, implying you were fired for theft. Some people don't believe it, but he's scaring us." Amanda's chest tightened with indignation. She recalled how quickly Henderson had turned on her. "I'm so sorry, Gabby," Amanda murmured, feeling guilt swirl inside. "I know he can be cruel, but you have rights. You know, if he's harassing you." A bitter laugh came through the line. "Amanda, you think I can afford to take on Belvedere's management? I've got 2 kids. I can't risk losing my job. But I wanted you to know he's actively poisoning your reputation. He's trying to ensure no one hires you if you ever come back to retail." Amanda swallowed the painful lump in her throat. Even though she was forging a new career, the idea of being slandered made her stomach roil. "I appreciate the warning," she said quietly. I'm not going back to retail, but this is so wrong." They spoke a few more minutes, Gabby detailing Henderson's petty tyrannies. By the time Amanda ended the call, her thoughts were swirling. She worried about Gabby and the others who still labored under Henderson's watch, enduring whispered accusations. She also worried about the possibility that he'd target Innovate next. After all, once malicious gossip took flight, it could land anywhere. Amanda returned to her desk, forcing herself to refocus on her tasks. Yet her mind played through the worst-case scenario, Henderson calling her new employer, sowing doubt. The memory of that public accusation, "thief," still made her cheeks burn. She had done nothing wrong, but rumors often held more power than facts. A wave of helplessness threatened to engulf her, but she paused, recalling how far she'd come since leaving Belvedere's. She wouldn't let Henderson's vendetta sabotage her new life. That evening, she decided to call Brian. Their interactions had been comfortable lately, daily texts, occasional dinner invitations, but she rarely initiated a phone call herself. Her heart pounded as she pressed his contact name. He answered almost immediately. "Amanda, good to hear from you," he said, warmth in his tone. She explained Gabby's phone call, her fears about Henderson's ongoing smear campaign. The line went quiet for a moment. "I've started collecting bits of information about him," Brian admitted. "Nothing definitive yet, just chatter from a few people at Belvedere's, but this helps confirm what we suspected. He's systematically intimidating staff." Amanda sank onto her couch, letting out a slow breath. "I hate feeling powerless. People like Gabby can't just quit. Meanwhile, Henderson smears my name, even though I'm not there." Brian's voice lowered. "I get it. No one should endure that. Don't worry about your position at Innovate. They chose you for your skill. Esara, Lee and Brandon believe in you, but I do want to put a stop to Henderson's behavior. We need solid proof." His mention of "we" sparked a flicker of reassurance in Amanda. At least she wasn't fighting alone. They brainstormed possible next steps, from encouraging employees to document harassment to contacting Belvedere's upper management. None of the ideas felt simple. Without direct evidence, Henderson could deny everything, just as he'd tried to deny the macarons fiasco until Brian intervened. After they hung up, Amanda stared at the skyline through her living room window, the city lights blinking in scattered patterns. She thought back to her childhood again, how she'd been blamed for stealing school supplies. The principal had demanded a confession she couldn't give because she was innocent. Even after the truth emerged, the damage stayed. She remembered that sense of isolation, how quickly false accusations turned bystanders into enemies. It hurt that adult life could be so similar. Just then, Maya returned from an evening spin class. She tossed her gym bag aside and raised an eyebrow. "You look troubled," she remarked. Amanda relayed her conversation with Gabby and Brian. Maya shook her head in disbelief. "That jerk just won't let you live your life. I say keep focusing on your coding job. Let Brian handle the rest. He seems invested in this, and in you." Maya's sly grin made Amanda roll her eyes, but she felt a small flutter of relief at the reminder that Brian truly cared. Before bed, Amanda reread her old coding notes, a ritual that always steadied her nerves. She refused to let Henderson's hostility distract her from the path she was forging. Still, the phone call from Gabby felt like the first ominous rumble of thunder. The past, it seemed, was banging at her door, threatening to upend everything she had gained. For now, she tried to lock it out, focusing on the new day ahead at Innovate. Yet deep down, she sensed that a confrontation with Henderson, one that might define her future, was inevitable. The next few weeks at Innovate Solutions were a blur of intense coding sessions, brainstorming meetings, and micro-successes that made Amanda's heart swell with pride. She woke each day, bracing for more rumors from Belvedere's, but her new world seemed blissfully separate. So far, at least, she buried herself in her tasks, determined to prove her worth not just to Brian or Brandon, but to herself. Her team was working on a prototype for a user-friendly financial planning app. Brandon assigned Amanda the task of creating the interactive dashboard. At first, the challenge felt daunting. She'd never dealt with advanced data visualization. But she tackled the problem step by step, scouring online forums and code repositories for fresh ideas. Her nights were spent hunched over her laptop, eyes stinging from prolonged screen glare. Finally, during a Monday morning stand-up meeting, Amanda presented her progress. As she navigated through her newly built dashboard, highlighting real-time updates and intuitive graphs, she noticed nods of approval from the senior developers. Brandon beamed when she finished. "That's fantastic work, Amanda," he said, glancing around the room. "User feedback on the beta version has been overwhelmingly positive." Warmth spread through her chest, genuine, affirming pride. Over lunch, a colleague named Helen, another junior dev, nudged Amanda playfully. "You're making the rest of us look bad," she joked. Amanda blushed, trying to brush off the compliment. "I still have so much to learn." Despite her modesty, she couldn't deny the thrill of belonging in a space that valued her mind. It was such a stark contrast to Belvedere's, where she'd felt invisible and undervalued. But not all was idyllic. The second half of that day, Amanda received a call from an unlisted number. Stepping into a hallway to avoid disturbing her teammates, she answered. A man's voice, tense, urgent, spoke. "Is this Amanda Hayes?" she confirmed, bracing herself. "This is Tom Reed, HR coordinator at Innovate. Could you come by my office after lunch? There's something we need to discuss." Her stomach did a quick flip. She mumbled a quick acknowledgement, ending the call. Did Henderson reach them? Her anxiety simmered as she navigated the bright, glass-walled corridors to find Tom Reed's office. She'd only met him once, in passing. Now, the tone of his phone request echoed in her ears as she entered his office, a tidy space with a single potted plant and a wall calendar displaying upcoming corporate events. She forced a polite smile. Tom, a man in his 30s with a friendly but serious demeanor, gestured for her to sit. "Amanda, thanks for coming. I'll get straight to the point. We received an anonymous tip about alleged misconduct in your recent employment history." Her lungs constricted. The words might as well have been a punch to the gut. "They claimed you were fired from Belvedere's for theft. We wanted to bring this to your attention." Amanda struggled to keep her composure. She inhaled a shaky breath, forming her response carefully. "I was never fired," she said, voice tighter than she wanted. "I resigned under duress after a false accusation of stealing macarons. A manager named Henderson tried to pin it on me, but it was a misunderstanding. Several witnesses can confirm that." She managed to keep her tone steady, even though her pulse roared in her ears. Tom nodded, his expression more sympathetic now. "I understand. I've reviewed your work here, and everything indicates you're a dedicated employee. Still, HR has an obligation to investigate any claims. Could you provide a statement, maybe references from that store who'd vouch for you?" Amanda's mind whirred. Most of the Belvedere's staff had scattered or were too afraid to speak up. Gabby might help, but that put her at risk. Then she recalled Brian's involvement. He had witnessed the entire confrontation. "Yes, I can provide a statement," she said, swallowing hard. "I also have a witness who stepped in. His name is Brian Sterling, and he saw I did nothing wrong." Tom's eyebrows rose at the mention of Sterling. "If that's the case, it might speed up the resolution." He offered a reassuring smile. "For now, focus on your job. We just needed clarity. We'll let you know if we need anything else." Amanda thanked him, rising on unsteady legs. As she left his office, her head buzzed with anger and relief. Anger that Henderson's malicious tip had found its way here, relief that Innovate seemed open to listening. Returning to her desk, she tried to bury herself in code to steady her racing mind. The lines of JavaScript blurred, though she realized it was a small reprieve that she hadn't been instantly judged or fired. Brandon, noticing her distraction, asked if she was okay. She gave a non-committal nod, not wanting to burden him with details just yet. That night, she texted Brian about the HR conversation. He called back within minutes. "I'm sorry," he said, voice tight with irritation. "It has to be Henderson. He's determined to ruin your reputation." Amanda sank onto her bed, picking at a loose thread on the comforter. "I gave HR your name. I hope that's all right." Brian chuckled dryly. "Of course. I'll let them know I was there for the entire fiasco. They can also pull security footage from Belvedere's if that still exists. We'll handle this." A wave of gratitude washed over Amanda. As frightened as she was, she no longer felt alone in the fight. "Thank you," she whispered, "for believing me." Brian's gentle tone reached her through the line. "You've proven yourself more than honest. Don't let this overshadow your achievements. The day your team signs off on that financial app, you'll remember you earned your place." Amanda ended the call, inhaling deeply. The sense of dread lingered. Henderson's shadow was long, but so was her determination. She was no longer the trembling barista at the Gilded Bean. She was a developer at Innovate Solutions, forging her path. And that knowledge fueled her resolve to keep pushing forward, no matter what tests came her way. Amanda woke before sunrise, troubled by dreams of her younger self, standing in an empty school hallway, accused of stealing colored pencils she'd never touched. She remembered the shame, the disbelief that anyone could see her as a criminal. After all, She was just a shy kid who rarely spoke out of turn. Yet the bullying that followed had marked her deeply. She wrapped herself in a thin sweater, padding into the kitchen where Maya was already sipping coffee. "Couldn't sleep?" Maya asked gently, noticing the dark shadows under Amanda's green eyes. "Nightmares," Amanda admitted, sliding onto a stool at the kitchen counter. "I keep replaying how easily lies turn people against you. It's the same fear I had as a kid. It all comes flooding back." Maya gave her a compassionate look. "I'm sorry. It's not fair you have to keep reliving these accusations. Maybe it's a sign you need to confront it once and for all." Amanda wrapped her hands around a steaming mug of coffee. "Yeah," she murmured, voice subdued. "It's just Henderson, Belvedere's, the constant rumors. It feels like a cycle that started way back, and I never learned how to break it." She tried to push those thoughts aside as she headed to Innovate. The usual shuffle of employees greeting each other in the lobby brought some solace. Today, she had a crucial project review meeting with the leadership team, and she refused to let her personal worries sabotage her focus. She settled at her desk, inhaled, and dove into final preparations for the presentation. Around midday, Brandon gathered the team in a small conference room. A glass wall overlooked the busy city street below. "Amanda, you'll demo the updated interface," he said, connecting her laptop to the overhead screen. She nodded, nerves flaring at the prospect of presenting to senior leaders, but also excited. This was the chance to prove she was more than just a junior developer. As she walked them through the product's new features, elegant graphs, user-friendly navigation, she could almost sense the tension in the room dissipate. The Innovatech executives leaned forward, asking pointed questions about data security and future scalability. Amanda answered confidently, referencing her late-night research. The glow of adrenaline powered her through each inquiry. When she wrapped up, one of the senior architects, a seasoned coder named Priya, nodded in approval. "Impressive stuff, Amanda. You have a knack for explaining complex processes in a clear way." Another executive, arms folded, offered a short but meaningful, "Good job." For a moment, she forgot Henderson, forgot the nightmares. She felt validated, respected. Brandon caught her eye, a proud grin on his face. She felt a rush of gratitude for this chance and for having found a place where her skill set mattered. After the meeting, she returned to her desk, heart still soaring, but the day's triumph was short-lived. Barely an hour later, her phone rang. This time, it was Maya. Amanda could hear traffic noise behind her friend's voice. "Sorry to interrupt your workday," Maya said, sounding hurried, "but I just got a text from Brenda. Yeah, that Brenda. She says Henderson's threatening to call the police about that stolen merchandise from months ago, claiming you admitted guilt." Amanda's hand tightened around the phone. "What? He's making that up. He knows I never admitted anything." Maya sighed. "I know, but I guess he's bragging around Belvedere's about how he's got you cornered. If he tries to open a false police case, it could be a mess." Amanda could practically feel her stomach twist. Even if the claims were baseless, dealing with police, or the potential stain on her name, was terrifying. "This is insane," she muttered, glancing around the open office. She suddenly felt exposed, even among her friendly co-workers. She ended the call with Maya, her thoughts tangling in a web of anger and fear. Why couldn't Henderson just leave her alone? A flicker of old insecurities threatened to unravel her sense of achievement from that morning's presentation. She forced herself to breathe slowly, counting to 5. Then she picked up her phone again, scrolling to Brian's number. If Henderson actually involved the police, she needed a plan. Brian answered on the second ring, calm as always. She explained the new threat. He exhaled sharply. "This is escalating," he said. "We've got to move faster. My contacts are gathering statements from staff. If Henderson tries anything official, we can present evidence that he's harassing you." Amanda rubbed her temples. "What if he files a claim and the police come to question me? Even if it's all lies, that kind of event could stir up trouble at Innovate." Brian's voice softened. "I understand. Try to focus on your job for now. Let me see if I can expedite those inquiries. We'll make sure the truth surfaces." In the silence that followed, she felt the tremor in her own breath. She pictured a younger Amanda, hunching her shoulders in a school cafeteria, hearing whispers about theft. She refused to let that memory shape her adult life any longer. That night, she returned to the Queen's apartment feeling drained. Maya made pasta, and they ate in subdued silence. After dinner, Amanda sought refuge in her coding notebooks, combing through lines of a personal side project, a small web app to track daily habits. The methodical nature of coding soothed her frayed nerves. Lying in bed later, she realized the emotional scars from childhood accusations ran deeper than she cared to admit. She was tired of feeling like the powerless kid who couldn't defend herself. If Henderson pushed forward, she would push back. She had Brian's influence, Maya's unwavering support, and her own perseverance. Fear still clutched her heart, but it was counterbalanced by a spark of determination. Henderson might have planted seeds of doubt, but she vowed to uproot them, no matter the pain it cost her. A week later, Brian called Amanda with unexpected news. "I have a business function at Belvedere's next Friday, some gala event. I'm technically a silent investor in one of their luxury brands. I'd like you to come with me." Amanda's immediate reaction was panic. The thought of stepping back into Belvedere's, the epicenter of her humiliation, turned her stomach. "Brian, I don't know if I can do that," she admitted, her voice faint. His reply was gentle but firm. "I won't force you, but this might be our chance to confront Henderson on neutral ground. We could potentially talk to upper management and expose his lies, especially if we do so calmly and with evidence in hand. Also, I'd hate for you to feel like you're hiding." Amanda chewed her lip, anxiety thrumming through her. Yet a nugget of logic surfaced. She was tired of cowering from Henderson's smear campaign. Perhaps facing him publicly, back where it all started, could help turn the tide. After a long pause, she whispered, "All right, I'll go." Brian's sigh of relief was audible. "We'll keep it low-key, but if an opportunity arises, we set the record straight." The night of the gala arrived faster than Amanda anticipated. Maya helped her pick out a modest but elegant black dress with a simple neckline. "You look amazing," Maya declared, giving an encouraging grin. "Go show them who you really are." Amanda swallowed, forcing a smile in return. Her reflection in the mirror revealed carefully styled copper hair and dark eyeliner highlighting her eyes, a far cry from the stressed-out barista uniform she once wore. Brian's limousine pulled up outside her apartment building, turning a few heads among her neighbors. She stepped in, heart pounding, meeting Brian's warm gaze. He wore a charcoal suit, crisp and sophisticated. "You look radiant," he said quietly. She managed a small nod, her nerves too jumbled for a polished response. As the car glided through city streets, he laid out the plan: mingle at the gala, maintain composure, and if Henderson appeared, engage only if it felt safe. Belvedere's soared above them like a glossy palace, its massive front windows lit in gold for the event. The doorman recognized Brian, greeting him with deference, but shot Amanda a curious glance. She squared her shoulders, reminding herself that she had every right to be here. Side by side, they stepped into the grand foyer, where a string quartet played softly and clusters of well-dressed guests sipped champagne. Amanda felt her pulse accelerate as they passed the exact spot where Henderson had publicly accused her. She swallowed, focusing on Brian's steady presence. Soon, a few Belvedere's representatives approached to greet Brian. Introductions were made. Polite conversation followed. Amanda kept her responses brief, smiling when necessary, scanning the crowd for a familiar face she dreaded to see. Sure enough, Henderson eventually appeared at the edge of the ballroom, wearing a pressed suit and a smug expression. Brenda stood nearby, adjusting a tray of appetizers. The moment Henderson's eyes locked onto Amanda, she sensed a ripple of shock cross his features. He quickly masked it with a cold smirk. "Mr. Sterling," he greeted Brian, ignoring Amanda entirely. "So glad you could join us." Brian nodded, his tone measured. "We're here to support Belvedere's philanthropic wing, correct?" Henderson lifted a glass of champagne, swirling it. "Indeed, always good to see influential guests." A tense silence fell. Amanda's heart pounded so loudly it nearly drowned out the hum of conversation around them. She recalled the last time she'd seen Henderson's face so close, contorted with accusations. Summoning courage, Amanda spoke, her voice steady despite the swirl of nerves. "Hello, Mr. Henderson." His smirk tightened. "Amanda Hayes, I'm surprised you'd show your face here." The challenge in his tone was unmistakable. She forced herself to remain calm. "I have nothing to hide," she replied quietly. Henderson's jaw clenched, but he merely gave a dismissive shrug. Brian broke in, lips pressed in a thin line. "I'd like to speak with the head of Belvedere's management if they have a moment. Perhaps you can direct us." Henderson shot Amanda a scathing look. "You can speak to them, but I doubt they'll waste time on groundless accusations." He drained his champagne and walked away, muttering something under his breath. Amanda's stomach clenched, but she felt an odd surge of relief. For the first time, she hadn't cowered. She'd faced Henderson without flinching, at least outwardly. Brian placed a hand on her elbow, guiding her through the crowd. "Let's find a calmer spot," he murmured. They ended up near a velvet-draped alcove, where a display of high-end accessories glittered. She pressed a hand to her chest, breath shallow. "That was harder than I thought," she admitted, voice trembling. Brian nodded. "You did well. He's clearly unsettled by your presence. Now we should see if we can talk to someone higher up, if you're ready." Amanda drew in a shaky breath. "Yes," she said, surprised at her own resolve. "I need them to hear what he's doing to people, how he's threatened me and others." Before they could move, a figure approached. Brenda, looking nervous, her eyes flicked from Brian to Amanda. "Listen," Brenda whispered, voice strained. "I don't want trouble, but I need to come clean. About that day with the macarons, I lied." Amanda's eyes widened. Brenda's gaze darted around to ensure Henderson wasn't nearby. "I said I saw you pocket something. I exaggerated to get you in trouble. I was jealous of your tips. I'm sorry." Her confession hung in the air, raw and unexpected. Amanda's chest tightened, too many emotions clashing at once. Anger, relief, sadness. Brian locked eyes with Brenda. "Are you willing to repeat this to Belvedere's management? Or even sign a statement?" Brenda swallowed hard. "If I have to, yes. I can't stand by anymore. Henderson's gone too far. He's threatening to fire me now, too." Amanda inhaled slowly, feeling a swirl of empathy for the same woman who had caused her so much pain. "Thank you for telling me," she said, voice shaking. "Let's do this the right way." They started toward a large set of double doors leading to the executive offices. Sweat prickled Amanda's palms. The atmosphere seemed charged with significance, a sense that everything was building to this moment. She risked a glance back and saw Henderson watching them, fury etched into his features. Whatever was about to happen, it felt like a final reckoning, a step onto the battleground where she could finally reclaim her dignity. The meeting with Belvedere's upper management took place in a refined conference room, dominated by a gleaming mahogany table. The walls boasted framed photographs of historic brand milestones. Amanda's hands grew clammy just stepping inside. Brian walked beside her, protective but not overbearing. Brenda trailed behind, fidgeting with the ends of her jacket sleeves. 3 senior executives greeted them: Ms. Whitaker, Mr. Fletcher, and Ms. Carter. They listened intently as Brian introduced himself, referencing his investment ties to certain departments within Belvedere's. Then, with quiet assurance, he handed the floor to Amanda and Brenda. Amanda felt her voice catch as she explained how Henderson had publicly accused her of theft, detailing the humiliating scene. Brenda chimed in haltingly, admitting she'd participated in fueling the rumor. She elaborated on Henderson's consistent intimidation tactics, how he penalized staff, made false claims, and used fear to maintain control. The executives exchanged wary glances as the accusations piled up. Mr. Fletcher, his expression stern, asked, "Do you have any evidence of these claims beyond testimony, documents, videos?" Brian stepped in. "We've obtained partial security footage that day, courtesy of a friend in store operations. It shows the macarons dropping near Amanda's bag. We also have witness statements from employees who've seen Henderson's pattern of harassment." Ms. Whitaker, an older woman with a crisp bob, clasped her hands. "We take employee treatment very seriously," she began, though her eyes flickered with concern. "If Mr. Henderson is abusing his role, we need to investigate swiftly, but we must do so properly. We can't just terminate him on the spot without due process." Brenda looked terrified at the mention of an investigation, but Amanda tried to steady her. "We understand," Amanda said. "I only want my name cleared, and for no one else to be victimized." Ms. Carter nodded, taking notes. "We'll place Mr. Henderson on immediate administrative leave pending a formal review. In the meantime, Ms. Hayes, we apologize for any harm caused. We appreciate your courage in bringing this forward." Relief washed over Amanda so intensely she had to steady herself with a small inhale. She glanced at Brian, who offered a supportive nod. Moments later, Henderson appeared at the conference room door, apparently summoned to face the executives. His glare burned into Amanda, then shifted to Brenda. "What is this?" he snapped, voice trembling with rage. "Ms. Whitaker rose, her tone crisp. "Mr. Henderson, we've heard concerning allegations, effective immediately. You're on leave until we complete our review. We request your full cooperation." Henderson paled, though a dangerous fury lingered in his eyes. "You," he hissed, pointing at Amanda. "You're conspiring with outsiders to ruin me." She stood her ground, heart hammering. "I told the truth," she said, voice quiet but unyielding. Brenda stepped forward, voice trembling but resolute. "So did I." Henderson looked ready to retort, but Miss Carter interjected, advising him to collect his things and leave the premises by day's end. As Henderson stormed away, Amanda released the breath she'd been holding. "Ms. Whitaker turned back to them. "Thank you for coming forward. We'll be in touch as we proceed," she said, her tone more measured. "Ms. Hayes, on behalf of Belvedere's, I'd like to extend an apology for how this situation was handled initially. It wasn't exactly a heartfelt atonement, but it was a formal admission that she hadn't been at fault." Amanda accepted it with a nod. When they stepped into the hallway, Brenda looked like she might collapse from relief and fear. "I guess I'm unemployed now," she murmured. Brian shook his head. "It's possible the investigation might also protect employees who speak out, especially if the higher-ups realize how rampant the problem is." Amanda lightly touched Brenda's arm. "Whatever happens, thank you. I hope it's worth it to clear the air." The other woman nodded, tears brimming. "I'm so sorry, Amanda." Brian and Amanda navigated back through the gala's throngs. They could feel a shift in the atmosphere. Whispers traveling. Some recognized Henderson's sudden absence, speculation in their gazes. They emerged into the main store area, weaving through elegantly dressed attendees. Amanda paused near the grand entrance, the same place where she had once been branded a thief. She couldn't help but feel a surge of quiet triumph, yet that triumph was short-lived. Her phone vibrated. A call from Innovate's HR. Amanda's breath caught. She glanced at Brian, motioning she needed a moment. Slipping behind a marble column, she answered. Tom Reed's voice greeted her. "Hi, Amanda. Sorry to bother you this late. I'm afraid we received another complaint regarding your past employment, someone claiming to be from Belvedere's, stating you falsified references." Her pulse thundered in her ears. "But that's not true," she insisted, pushing down panic. Tom's tone was guarded. "I understand. But these repeated accusations have made some in upper management cautious. We need more time to review your file. For now, we're placing you on a brief suspension with pay until the matter is resolved." Amanda's chest constricted. "Suspension?" she echoed, voice cracking. She felt dizzy, tears pricking her eyes. "It's not a termination," Tom clarified. "It's procedure until we sort this out. Please hang tight." Then the line went dead, leaving Amanda reeling. She pressed a hand to her temple, the conversation swirling in her mind. She was being suspended for the second time in her life, yet again because of a lie. For all the relief of seeing Henderson escorted out, his vendetta had found a new angle. An anonymous tip. Doubt rooted itself in Innovate's HR, and she was back under scrutiny. A crushing sense of déjà vu rolled over her. She stumbled away from the column, scanning the crowd for Brian. He spotted her and hurried over, expression alarmed. "Amanda, what happened?" Her eyes brimmed with tears, though she fought to keep them from spilling. "That was Innovate's HR. I'm suspended." Brian's face darkened. "Suspended? On what grounds?" She drew a shaky breath, struggling to speak. "Because Henderson, or someone he put up to it, keeps feeding them lies. They can't fire me without cause, but they can suspend me while they investigate." His hand found hers, steadying her trembling fingers. "We'll fix this. You have my word. Tonight proved Henderson's actions at Belvedere's. We can show Innovate the same evidence." But Amanda felt her heart sink. She remembered all the times in her past when the truth simply hadn't been enough to stop assumptions, gossip, or fear. Tears streaked her cheeks, and she didn't bother wiping them. "I'm so tired," she whispered, "so tired of being called a thief, of constantly defending myself." Brian pulled her gently into a quieter corner, looking into her tear-filled eyes. "I know. But you're not alone this time. Let me help." Despite the weight crushing her chest, a small kernel of hope refused to die. She let Brian hold her, the swirl of gala music and chatter fading. The future felt precarious, like she was walking a tightrope above the same old pit of accusations and shame. But at least, she told herself, this time she wouldn't face the darkness alone. Amanda stood in her bedroom, staring blankly at her closed laptop. Every fiber of her wanted to work on Innovate's new coding tasks, but she no longer had the official right to log in. The suspension email had come through that morning, reiterating Tom Reed's phone call from the night of the gala. She felt an odd disconnect, reading the polite language that withheld her from duties until all matters are resolved. A swirl of frustration, fear, and anger simmered in her chest. Maya peeked into the room, concern etched on her face. "Hey, any update?" Amanda slowly shook her head. "They said it could take a few days, maybe more. Apparently, they have to check every shred of information Henderson or his cronies fed them." She sank onto the edge of her bed, fiddling with a loose thread on her comforter. This is my dream job, Maya, and it's all on pause because of a liar. Sitting beside her, Maya gave her a comforting shoulder bump. I know it's not fair, but you've already taken huge steps to prove your innocence. You confronted Henderson in his own lair, for crying out loud. And you've got Brian on your side. Amanda managed a wan smile, recalling Brian's promise to speak with Innovate's HR, to share the evidence exonerating her at Belvedere's. Yet, the memory of being labelled a thief still gnawed at her, resurrecting old wounds. I'm exhausted, she whispered. It feels like a never-ending cycle. Maya rubbed her back gently. It's okay to rest. That's not giving up. You've been pushing non-stop. Amanda exhaled, shoulders slumping. Perhaps she did need a break, a moment to grieve the injustice before she could rally again. Standing up, she resolved to at least take a walk and clear her head. In the chilly afternoon light, Amanda wandered through a small park near her Queens neighborhood. A faint breeze rustled the bare branches overhead. Children bundled in puffy coats chased each other around a half-frozen fountain. Watching their innocent play, Amanda felt a pang of longing for simpler times. Her phone buzzed. She saw Brian's name and answered with quiet relief. "Any news?" he asked. His voice held the same careful optimism she'd grown used to. Amanda explained that nothing had changed, that she felt stuck in limbo. Brian let out a slow breath. "I spoke with Tom Reed this morning. I gave him copies of the Belvedere's security footage, plus Brenda's signed statement. He seemed receptive but said Innovate needs to complete internal procedures." Amanda nodded, hugging her coat tighter against the winter chill. "I guess I can't blame them for being thorough. I just hate feeling powerless." Brian's voice softened. "I know, but you are not powerless. You've shown more courage in the last few weeks than some people manage in a lifetime. Let this process run its course, and I believe the truth will prevail." She ended the call, taking those words with her as she circled the park path. Gradually, she let the cold wind clear some of her anxiety. By the time she returned to the apartment, she found a package waiting at the front steps, addressed to her. Inside was a thick, spiral-bound binder with a sticky note. "Figured you could use some reading material. Dr. Carter." Her online coding mentor had compiled advanced tutorials and encouraging quotes in the margins. Amanda felt tears prick her eyes, touched by the unexpected kindness. That night, she curled up on the couch with the binder and a cup of hot cocoa. Maya occasionally glanced over, noticing Amanda's lips moving as she muttered lines of code or read instructions out loud. Though she wasn't officially working for Innovate during the suspension, she refused to let her skills grow rusty. Immersing herself in the technical realm became a balm for her restless mind. Midway through her reading, her phone chimed with an email notification. Her pulse kicked up, hoping it was from Innovate. Instead, it was a message from Gabby, the cosmetics employee at Belvedere's who had warned Amanda about Henderson. "Amanda, after you left the gala, a few of us went to HR with our own complaints. Henderson's on leave now, and management is asking more questions about how he's been treating staff. I hope this helps." Amanda's heart squeezed with gratitude. Others were stepping forward too, confirming the abusive patterns. That might not directly fix things at Innovate, but it chipped away at the lie that she was the problem. She showed the email to Maya, who gave a triumphant little cheer. "See, people believe you. They know Henderson is the culprit." Despite this glimmer of hope, Amanda still fought the gnawing dread that at any moment Innovate might cut her loose to avoid risk. Memories of losing jobs in the past haunted her. Each time, she'd walked away wondering if some intangible stigma would follow her forever. She forced herself to stay present, to focus on the fact that she had real allies now. Before bed, she flicked on her laptop to do a quick search for alternate coding roles, just in case. The act felt simultaneously like a betrayal of her hopes and a necessary precaution. She scrolled through listings, noticing that none carried the same spark as her position at Innovate. She closed the browser, leaning back in her desk chair, determined not to give in to fatalism. Eventually, exhaustion overrode her tension, and she slipped under the covers. Her mind replayed Brian's gentle reassurance and Dr. Carter's heartfelt gesture in mailing her that binder. She clung to the notion that this death of her current progress, this suspension that felt like a looming end, could be transformed into a stepping stone toward vindication. The day's small signs of solidarity from Gabby, from Brenda, from her mentor, gave her reason to believe that even in this darkest hour, she wasn't fighting alone. A restless week crawled by before Innovate requested Amanda's presence for a formal hearing. The HR department had assembled a panel. Tom Reed, Srey Lee, and a senior executive named Robert Yang. Stepping into the large conference room, Amanda's palms felt damp against the folder she clutched. Inside were the documents Brian had helped gather, security footage, snapshots, statements from Belvedere's employees, and Brenda's written testimony admitting her lies. Tom greeted her kindly, gesturing to a seat. "We appreciate you coming in." "Let's begin by reviewing what we've uncovered." Amanda swallowed hard, glancing at the polished table's surface as if it might ground her. Robert Yang cleared his throat, cutting to the chase. "The anonymous tips we received painted you as dishonest, but we have since learned these claims originated from Mr. Henderson of Belvedere's. We've also seen enough evidence to doubt his motives." A subtle wave of relief washed through Amanda. She took a steadying breath. "I never stole anything," she said, voice clear. "Henderson tried to frame me. Brenda Mullins, a former co-worker, confessed to her part in spreading false rumors. We have footage showing the macarons falling into my bag by accident. Brian Sterling witnessed the entire scene and paid for the item to defuse the moment." Her words, though calm, carried the memory of deep humiliation. "Shra." Lee leaned forward, sympathy in her gaze. "Mr. Sterling provided a detailed statement as well." Robert nodded, flipping through pages. "Given the thoroughness of this evidence, it appears these accusations against you are baseless." He slid a document across the table. "However, in any corporate environment, perception can impact our decisions. That's why we needed time to confirm the truth. We regret the stress this has caused you." Amanda's pulse pounded in her ears. "So, what does this mean for me and my position here?" she asked, bracing for any outcome. Tom Reed gave a slight smile. "It means your suspension is lifted, effective immediately. We'll notify your team so you can resume your duties tomorrow." Amanda pressed a hand to her chest, relief surging. "Thank you," she managed, voice trembling. It felt like 100-pound weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Yet Robert Yang raised a finger, as if to add something. "We also want you to know that we value what you bring to Innovate. You've proven your dedication under extreme pressure. When our next project opens a full-time developer slot, you'll be on the short list for consideration." Amanda's heart gave a jubilant leap, that glimmer of recognition she had hungered for. Finally, it wasn't overshadowed by distrust. The meeting concluded with handshakes and measured smiles. Tom escorted Amanda out, murmuring softly, "I'm sorry for the ordeal. If you have any lingering concerns, my door's open." She nodded, gratitude mingling with residual anger at how easily malicious rumors had nearly derailed her career. But for now, victory tasted sweet enough. Once outside the HR corridor, she typed out a quick text to Brian. "Cleared. Suspension is lifted. Thank you for everything." His reply was immediate. "That's wonderful news. So proud of you. Let's talk soon." She allowed herself a rare moment of pure exhilaration, standing in the hallway with a grin so wide her cheeks hurt. That evening, Amanda invited Maya to a small celebration at a tapas bar a few blocks from their apartment. They found a cozy table near the window, warm ambient lights reflecting off half-empty sangria glasses. "Cheers to your vindication," Maya said, clinking her glass lightly against Amanda's. "Does this mean Henderson is out of your life for good?" Amanda shrugged, sipping her sangria. "He's on leave, under investigation, but Belvedere's might just keep things hush-hush. At least I'm safe at Innovate." Still, she couldn't banish the lingering tension. Henderson's lies had battered her confidence more than once. She wondered if she could truly exhale without fearing another sneak attack. But for tonight, she let the weight slip from her shoulders. Halfway through their meal, Amanda's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen to see a message from Gabby again. Henderson was officially let go. They announced it quietly, but staff is relieved. He's furious, but it's over. I'm so happy for you. Amanda stifled a gasp. Rereading Gabby's words, Maya caught her surprised expression. "What is it?" "Henderson was fired," Amanda whispered, scarcely believing it. "Belvedere's must have found enough evidence to terminate him outright. Gabby says the staff feels safer." A rush of conflicting emotions welled in her chest. Vindication, relief, and even a trace of pity for anyone so consumed by bitterness. But the overarching feeling was freedom. She lifted her gaze to Maya's with a trembling smile. "It's finally done." Maya reached across the table, squeezing Amanda's hand. "No more looking over your shoulder." Tears pricked Amanda's eyes, a swirl of joy and lingering trauma. "I can't believe it," she murmured. "It's like a heavy storm cloud blew away." The rest of the evening felt surreal, the tension slowly unraveling as they chatted about normal life events, Maya's job, weekend plans, favorite local bands. Before heading home, they walked along the sidewalk, a cool breeze carrying the sounds of distant traffic. Amanda paused under a street lamp, letting the soft glow highlight the faint smile on her face. She remembered standing outside Belvedere's under the rain, feeling so helpless, but no more. She had confronted her accuser, cleared her name, and emerged stronger for it. Later, in the quiet apartment, Amanda sat at her desk and opened a blank document. She typed out a single sentence. "Today, the truth won." Staring at those words, she allowed herself to acknowledge the milestone. She would return to Innovate without suspicion hovering, confident in her abilities and her integrity. With Henderson out of the picture, new doors stretched before her. She knew this wasn't the end of all challenges, but it was a monumental step forward, a testament to her resilience and to those who had believed in her along the way. Less than 24 hours after the hearing, Amanda stepped into Innovate's offices, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. As she swiped her employee badge at the glass turnstiles, a wave of relief coursed through her. No longer was she a pariah. No longer did she have to worry that any moment Tom Reed might call her aside with bad news. When she reached her desk, Brandon popped up from behind his computer, beaming. "Hey, look who's back." A few of Amanda's teammates clapped softly, and she felt her cheeks warm. Helen handed her a small note that read, "We missed you." A tightness closed around Amanda's throat, gratitude mingling with the realization that she'd found true camaraderie. Eager to catch up, Brandon guided her into a nearby conference room. "So," he began, leaning against the table, "we've made progress on the financial planning app you helped develop. But we kept a seat warm for you to finalize the visual analytics piece. Think you're up for it?" Amanda nodded, excitement bubbling. "Absolutely. I've been itching to get back into the code." Brandon grinned. "Great. We'll have a product demo next week, and the leadership team wants your input on how to refine the user interface. Your perspective's crucial." Amanda tried not to let her jaw drop. She was no longer just a newbie developer. They genuinely wanted her insights. It felt surreal and deeply validating. After gathering her tasks, she settled at her workstation, rolling up her sleeves metaphorically and literally. The codebase had advanced during her absence, but as she pored over the updated repository, her mind slid back into the rhythm of creative problem-solving. Her suspension might have robbed her of a week, but it hadn't dulled her passion. Mid-morning, Brian texted her a simple note: "Coffee at lunchtime." She agreed, taking a quick break around noon. They met in the lobby, where Brian wore his usual tailored suit. Yet he looked more relaxed than she'd ever seen him, hands resting in his pockets. They crossed the street to a bright cafe with modern decor. Over steaming cappuccinos, Amanda relayed the good news about her smooth reintegration. Brian nodded, sipping his drink. "I'm glad to hear it. You deserved to walk back in there with your head held high." She studied him for a moment. "What about you?" she asked gently. "You've done so much, gathering statements, talking to Belvedere's leadership, supporting me through all this. You must have your own responsibilities." Brian shrugged lightly. "I've got a solid team at Sterling Innovations. And, well, I wanted to make time for something that mattered." Amanda's heart fluttered at his words. She'd wrestled with the dynamic between them for days. Was he just a kind benefactor, or was there something more personal developing between them? She drew in a soft breath and decided to ask, "Why does this matter to you so much?" Brian regarded her thoughtfully, setting his cup down. "At first, I stepped in because I hate injustice. But the more I got to know you, the more I admired your resilience. You reminded me that success is about more than deals. It's about integrity, about people who stand up for what's right." Warmth spread through Amanda, tinged with self-consciousness. She tried to muster a response, but her lips merely parted without sound. Brian seemed to sense her swirl of emotions, offering a gentle smile. "No pressure for an answer," he said softly. "We can just enjoy our coffee." "I'm just glad to see you thriving again." They returned to their respective offices, the weight of unspoken emotions trailing them. Once at her desk, Amanda found it hard to concentrate. She reread lines of code with Brian's words echoing in her mind, feeling a subtle shift in their connection. If a romance was blossoming, it was quiet, built on mutual respect and a shared sense of justice. Still, she reminded herself that one ordeal might have ended, but real life was ongoing and complicated. Her day ended on a triumphant note. She successfully integrated new data visualization widgets into the financial app's dashboard, fixing a pesky bug that had stumped her colleagues. The team cheered lightly when the code compiled without errors. For Amanda, the sense of belonging was worth more than any applause. She was genuinely part of this project, a collaborator whose work made a difference. That night, Amanda met Maya at a small noodle bar for dinner. They slurped steaming bowls of ramen while Amanda recounted her day. Maya's grin widened with every sentence. "I'm so proud of you," she said, twirling noodles around her chopsticks. "You overcame the worst kind of workplace drama, twice. Now you're shining." Amanda couldn't hide her own grin. "I feel like I finally proved to myself that I can rise above slander, not just survive it, actually move forward." Maya leaned in. "And Brian's pretty proud too, from what I hear. You two talk often." Amanda blushed, nodding. "We do. He's someone I trust. Things feel natural, even when they're complicated." Maya smirked knowingly. "Well, if anything more comes of it, I call dibs on being maid of honor." Amanda nearly choked on her broth, laughing, though a tiny flutter in her stomach betrayed she found the thought oddly pleasing. Life had thrown her enough curveballs that she'd learned not to dismiss possibilities outright. Later, as Amanda prepped for bed, she paused by her computer. She opened a file labeled Personal Goals, an old digital diary she'd kept while enduring Belvedere's daily grind. Scrolling down the bullet points, get a stable tech job, prove myself, find respect, she realized she'd achieved so many. Now a new line glimmered in her mind: learn to accept happiness. With a soft click of the keyboard, she typed it in. The screen's faint glow reflected in her eyes, illuminating a future no longer overshadowed by Henderson's lies, but instead guided by truth, dignity, and the promise of love. Amanda settled into her seat at the Innovate Solutions weekly team review, feeling a fresh kind of calm. It wasn't the jittery excitement of proving herself, nor the edgy fear of being wrongly judged. It was the steady assurance that she belonged here. Across the conference table, Helen and Brandon chatted about the upcoming product demo for potential investors. Amanda thumbed through a draft presentation, noting where she could refine some interface visuals. That sense of stability felt new, like she was finally standing on solid ground. She'd often daydreamed about it back at Belvedere's, having a workplace where her contributions were seen and valued. Now the dream was tangible, and it brought a surprising wave of introspection. Who was she, once the fight to clear her name was over? During the lunch break, she found a quiet corner in the office's lounge area. Typically, she'd join colleagues at the communal tables, but something drew her inward today. Flipping open her laptop, she scrolled to an old folder titled Backstory. It held writing exercises she'd done years ago, personal reflections, glimpses of childhood memories, half-formed journal entries. She clicked one file at random, unearthing a snippet about being falsely accused in 6th grade. The words crackled with raw emotion, describing her tears and confusion. Reading it now, she felt compassion for her younger self. She'd carried that wound for so long, letting it fester into a deep fear of being misjudged. Her phone buzzed. Brian was calling. She closed the file, clearing her throat softly. "Hey," she greeted. "Everything okay?" Brian's smooth baritone flowed through. "I just finished a meeting near your office. Care to join me for a quick walk?" Amanda blinked at her watch. She had enough time before her next meeting. "Sure, I'll be downstairs." They stepped out onto the bustling midtown sidewalk, weaving between office workers hurrying back from lunch. Sunlight glinted off skyscraper windows, and Amanda realized winter was giving way to a gentler season. The crisp air carried the slightest hint of spring warmth. Brian slipped his hands into his pockets, matching her pace. "How are you feeling?" he asked, glancing at her. "Really feeling?" She took a moment before answering. "Like I'm finally getting to know myself again," she said slowly, without the shadow of accusations, without the fear that any day the other shoe might drop. Brian nodded, a quiet understanding in his eyes. They paused at a crosswalk. He studied her face, then ventured, "You've faced a lot of adversity, but you never compromised your integrity. That's commendable. And you're still so open, kind." Amanda felt her cheeks warm. "I appreciate that. Honestly, it's been a process to trust people again, but you made it easier." The words spilled from her, and she realized they rang with more affection than she'd ever openly expressed. Brian's faint smile told her he heard it. The light changed, and they crossed the street, conversation shifting to simpler topics: his upcoming tech conference, her progress at Innovate, but an undercurrent of closeness lingered. Back at her desk, Amanda resumed her tasks, thoughts drifting occasionally to the swirl of complicated feelings she harbored toward Brian. She couldn't deny the growing bond between them, shaped by adversity and mutual respect. Yet, she reminded herself to proceed with caution. She'd only just reclaimed her sense of self. Diving headlong into a relationship might rattle her newly found balance. That evening, after her shift, Amanda headed home to find Maya rummaging through the kitchen cabinets. "I'm starved," Maya complained, "but we have 0 groceries." Amanda laughed. "We can order in, or we can do the responsible thing and actually shop for once." Half an hour later, they were navigating the produce aisle of a local grocery store, playfully debating which vegetables to buy. As they selected tomatoes and kale, Maya tossed a head of lettuce into the cart and said, "So, Brian." Amanda nearly dropped a bell pepper. "Subtle," she teased. Maya smirked. "What? I just want to know how that's going. You're in a good place now, work is stable, Henderson's out of the picture. Maybe it's time to explore the personal side of life." Amanda's lips pursed thoughtfully. "He's been incredibly supportive. We have this natural connection. But I don't want to rush. My independence matters to me." Maya nodded, guiding the cart down another aisle. "Fair enough. Just don't let fear keep you from something real. Brian obviously respects your capabilities, so I doubt he'd want to overshadow your independence." It was blunt, but Maya had a knack for pointing out truths Amanda sometimes avoided. That night, after a dinner of homemade salads and bread, Amanda found herself alone in her bedroom, the hum of city traffic drifting through the window. She opened her phone to see a message from Brian. "Hope you had a productive day. Had to think about you while finalizing a proposal. Your insight on user interface design gave me an idea." Smiling, she typed back, "Glad I could inspire. My day was good too. Maybe we can compare notes sometime." She hit send, her heart giving a small flutter. Setting the phone aside, she exhaled slowly, letting the swirl of daily responsibilities and uncertain feelings settle. In many ways, she felt like she was reuniting with aspects of herself she'd buried. The girl who dared to dream, who believed in fairness, and who quietly yearned for connection. For so long, she'd thought being strong meant shutting the world out. Now she understood that true strength could lie in trusting people who earned it. She remembered the old journal entries and her vow to heal. Maybe this was the moment to start anew, not just in career, but in every facet of her life. Rising from the bed, she walked to the mirror, catching her reflection. "I'm proud of you," she whispered to herself, a little self-affirmation that felt oddly liberating. Then, with a soft smile, she turned out the light and let the gentle hum of the city lull her into dreams of a future that, at last, felt open and bright. It was Friday afternoon when Amanda concluded a final coding task for the week. The entire Innovate office buzzed with a sense of anticipation. An internal product demo was set for Monday morning, expected to draw potential clients from across the city. As she tidied up her codebase, she caught Brandon's eye from across the open workspace. He offered a thumbs up, and she responded with a grin, reflecting the shared excitement. Just before she logged off, Sarai Lee stopped by her desk. "Amanda, I've been reviewing everyone's performance in preparation for the new developer position opening. I'll be honest, your name keeps coming up at the top." Amanda's heart fluttered. "Thank you," she said, voice hushed with surprise. "I'd love the chance to move from intern to full-time developer." Sarai Lee's nod was approving. "We'll have news soon. Just keep doing what you're doing." After clocking out, she found Brian waiting for her near the elevator banks, an easy smile on his face. "Thought we might celebrate your big week," he suggested, guiding her outside. The city air was mild, the first signs of early spring visible in the budding trees along the sidewalk. Brian's car was parked nearby, but instead of offering her a ride, he gestured toward a small bistro on the corner. "I made a reservation, if you're free," he said, tilting his head. She hesitated, recalling her conversation with Maya about not letting fear rule her. Then she nodded. "I'd like that." The bistro was cozy, its windows brimming with potted herbs and flowers. They slipped into a snug corner booth, the glow of pendant lights casting warm circles on the wooden table. The menu featured farm-to-table dishes, and Brian recommended a few favorites. When the server left with their orders, Brian leaned forward, elbows propped on the table. "How do you feel about your progress? You've come such a long way in a short time." Amanda fiddled with her napkin, allowing a small smile. "It's surreal. I keep waiting to wake up and find I'm back at the Gilded Bean, but I'm excited. It feels like I've been climbing a hill for years, and now I can see the sky." Brian's gaze held a quiet admiration that made her pulse quicken. "You'll do great things, Amanda, not just at Innovate, but anywhere you set your mind. In fact," he paused, almost as if weighing his next words, "Sterling Innovations is always looking for passionate talent. If you ever outgrow Innovate, there could be a place for you with us." Amanda's eyes widened, flattered by the prospect. "I'll keep that in mind, but I owe Innovate my loyalty for giving me this chance." Nodding, Brian took a sip of water. "Of course, I'd never undermine your current role. Just know you have options." They chatted about the upcoming product demo, the possibilities for Amanda's future in tech, and the new confidence she'd gained. Between them, a gentle closeness kept building, an unspoken acknowledgement that their connection went beyond professional courtesy. After dinner, they strolled out onto the sidewalk. Night had fallen, and the city lights glimmered like scattered stars against towering buildings. Brian cleared his throat. "I wonder if you'd like to attend a tech conference next month. My company is hosting a panel on emerging software trends. You'd meet some influential people in the industry. Could be good networking." Amanda felt a tingle of excitement. "I'd love that, though I might be in awe just being there," she joked. Brian shook his head, smiling. "You'll hold your own." They paused at a quiet spot where a street musician strummed a mellow tune on a guitar. Amanda listened to the gentle chords and breathed in the moment. She realized that she was comfortable with Brian in a way she rarely experienced with others. Gently, he reached for her hand. This time, she didn't pull away. Instead, she savored the warmth that spread through her chest, a blossoming sense of possibility. "Thank you," she said softly, eyes meeting his, "for everything, believing in me, helping me, letting me stand on my own feet while still knowing I wasn't alone." Brian's expression turned earnest. "I haven't done nearly as much as you have. You fought for your integrity at every turn. I just played backup." Amanda's breath hitched, emotions swirling. She gave his hand a light squeeze. "It mattered, more than I can say." He walked her to the subway station entrance. The city around them felt alive with promise. Cars moving, neon signs humming, streetlights casting fluid shadows on the pavement. They lingered for a moment beneath the glow of a lamppost, the hum of the station's escalators in the background. Brian looked like he might say something more, but held back, instead giving a gentle smile. "Have a good night, Amanda. I'll see you soon." On the train ride home, Amanda's thoughts churned with the sense that a new chapter was unfurling. She pictured the upcoming product demo, a possible promotion at Innovate, and a deeper bond with Brian. Her heart pounded with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. For so long, her energy had been poured into sheer survival, fighting accusations, scrambling to pay rent, juggling frantic study schedules. Now, she dared to imagine a stable future that included career growth, genuine friendship, and perhaps the blossoming of real love. When she reached her apartment, Maya was in the living room, flipping through a fashion magazine. Amanda kicked off her shoes and sank onto the couch. "You look happy," Maya said, arching an eyebrow. "Good dinner." Amanda nodded. "Amazing. I think I'm planning my life now, not just reacting to it." Maya laughed softly, leaning over to hug her. "Then you're way ahead of most of us. I'm proud of you." Amanda gazed around the apartment, its worn furniture, mismatched rugs, and the small desk where she'd spent countless nights teaching herself to code. Despite the humble setting, she felt more fulfilled than she ever had. For the first time, the future didn't intimidate her. She saw her path not as a precarious tightrope, but as a wide avenue of possibilities, professionally, personally, emotionally. She stood up, retreated to her bedroom, and opened her laptop to review notes for Monday's demo. This was her chance to define a future built on truth, dignity, and open-hearted courage, and she intended to embrace every step of the journey. Amanda's phone chimed early on a sunny Wednesday morning, pulling her from a dreamless sleep. She groaned, blinking in the soft daylight that filtered through her curtains. Checking the screen, she found an email from Innovate's communications department, invitation to speak at the Sterling Innovations Tech Conference, keynote spotlight. Her heart somersaulted. She read the subject line again to be sure she wasn't misinterpreting it. They wanted her, a junior developer, formerly a barista at Belvedere's, to give a short talk on her journey into tech and the product she'd helped create. She scrambled out of bed, nearly tripping over a stray pair of shoes, and padded into the kitchen where Maya hovered over the coffee maker. "Maya!" Amanda exclaimed, her voice bursting with nervous energy. "I just got invited to speak at a major tech conference, like an actual keynote slot." Maya's eyes lit up. "No way! That's incredible!" Amanda sank into a chair, half thrilled and half terrified. "I'm not a polished public speaker. The largest audience I've ever faced was a staff meeting at Innovate." Maya poured her a cup of coffee, giving a supportive grin. "But you have a powerful story, and your dev team loves your insights. This is an amazing opportunity. Don't let fear take over." Amanda cupped her hands around the warm mug, letting the steam settle her nerves. She wanted to say yes. Something deep inside her yearned to step onto that stage and share her experiences. Yet doubt simmered. Memories of false accusations from her past still lingered, and the notion of standing before hundreds of industry professionals felt both exhilarating and daunting. Later that morning, she stepped into the Innovatech office, trying to project her usual calm. After checking in at her desk, she found a small envelope waiting there. Inside was a handwritten note from Srey Lee. "We're so proud of you. Can't wait to see you shine." Amanda's chest tightened with gratitude. She reread the line, "We're so proud of you," and felt a small wave of emotion. Overcoming Henderson's smear campaign had brought her to a place where colleagues believed in her wholeheartedly. Now, they wanted her to represent them publicly. Her day blurred with meetings and code reviews, but the invitation hung in the back of her mind like a beacon. By lunchtime, she was restless enough to text Brian. "Did you know about this conference keynote invite?" He replied almost instantly, "I heard the communications team was discussing it. Couldn't be more thrilled for you. Let's talk tonight." She felt both comforted and anxious, aware that she'd have to decide soon. That evening, Amanda met Brian in a quiet wine bar near Bryant Park. The interior glowed with low lighting and soft jazz playing overhead. She relayed her concerns, picking at the edge of a napkin as she spoke. "I'm afraid I'll freeze up on stage," she admitted. "And part of me wonders if I deserve this spotlight when there are so many brilliant devs with more experience." Brian studied her, setting his glass down. "Your story has weight precisely because of your path. People want genuine voices, someone who shows it's possible to break into tech no matter the starting point. You're that person." Amanda's pulse fluttered. She recalled those lonely nights studying code at her kitchen table, dreaming of a better life. Maybe by telling her story, she could help others realize they, too, could climb out of unfair circumstances. She sipped her wine, letting the idea sink in. "I do want to inspire people," she said quietly, "but what if I choke up there?" Brian's reassuring smile made her shoulders relax. You won't be alone. Innovate will help you prepare, and I'll be there in the audience. If you can face Henderson and an unjust system, you can handle a conference crowd. She exhaled, nodding slowly. I guess I can always practice and refine my talk. The thought of rehearsing set her at ease. If there was one thing Amanda had learned, it was how to work diligently until a challenge felt manageable. They left the bar with a plan. She would accept the invitation and spend the coming weeks shaping a concise, heartfelt presentation about her journey, transitioning from a barista accused of theft to a developer who helped launch a successful financial planning app. Over the next days, Amanda threw herself into prep mode. She drafted bullet points covering her background, the fiasco at Belvedere's, Brian's intervention, the coding path she took, and the lessons gleaned about integrity. She was surprised to find that writing it all out brought up moments of vulnerability, painful memories of being shamed, the lingering fear that her achievements might vanish if someone in power twisted the truth again. Yet, seeing it in black and white also reminded her how far she'd come. Late one night, she stood in her bedroom, reciting an early version of her talk to an imaginary audience. She practiced pausing for emphasis, letting her voice rise and fall naturally. Maya cracked open the door, smiling. Sounds good, she whispered. You're so honest. People are going to love it. Amanda pressed her lips together, grateful for the feedback. Thanks. I'm doing my best. She realized she might still stumble, might still feel the quiver of anxiety. But each run-through built a layer of confidence she'd never had before. As the conference date approached, she recognized the undertone of fear was still there, but it mingled with a blossoming excitement. Victory, she realized, wasn't the absence of anxiety. It was the willingness to confront that anxiety head-on. She was stepping up to a podium she never imagined she'd stand behind. And in that act of standing, she would reveal her vulnerability and her strength in the same breath. On the morning of the Sterling Innovations Tech Conference, Amanda arrived at the sprawling convention center with a backpack full of notes and a stomach full of nerves. Rows of banners hung from the rafters, each displaying futuristic logos and slogans about disruptive technology. A giant digital display on the lobby wall scrolled through the names of presenters, and Amanda felt her heart skip when she saw her own photo appear. Amanda Hayes, building dignity and innovation, one line of code at a time. Brandon and Helen from Innovate greeted her in the entry hall, offering encouraging smiles and a quick hug. We got your back, Helen whispered. Brandon gave her a thumbs up. Your slides are loaded and ready. You'll knock this out of the park. Amanda nodded, swallowing hard. The days of practicing in her bedroom mirror suddenly felt small compared to the massive stage that awaited her. An hour later, she found herself in a backstage area, watching from behind a thick curtain as a dynamic keynote speaker finished a talk about artificial intelligence. The crowd erupted in applause. Amanda gripped the edges of her note cards, sweaty palms reminding her of her own humanity. She spotted Brian near the side of the stage, arms folded, eyes scanning the auditorium. When he caught her gaze, he mouthed, "You'll do great," which offered a sliver of reassurance. Finally, the announcer's voice rang through the sound system. Please welcome Amanda Hayes, Junior Developer at Innovate Solutions. Her pulse throbbed in her ears. She stepped out onto the stage, blinking at the bright lights overhead. Rows of seated professionals stretched before her, many with laptops or phones, ready to tweet or take notes. Her mouth felt dry, but she forced a confident smile. The first moments were a blur. She introduced herself and her background, voice trembling slightly. Yet, as she spoke about the road from serving espresso to writing code, her nerves began to settle. She described how she'd faced injustice, a public accusation that once threatened to crush her spirit, and how she'd fought to reclaim her name and place in the tech community. There were quiet gasps in the audience. She sensed genuine empathy radiating back at her. She flowed into the section about her coding projects, highlighting the financial planning app that had garnered praise for its intuitive interface. She sprinkled humor about her early missteps, accidentally crashing the system once at Innovate or nearly deleting a crucial database table. Laughter rippled through the crowd, and she relaxed further by the time she reached the conclusion, emphasizing that opportunities can flourish when we find the courage to stand up for truth. She felt a surge of conviction, her voice steady and clear. Applause swelled, far louder than she expected. Faces lit up, some folks nodding with tears brimming in their eyes, others beaming with encouragement. Amanda blinked back tears of her own, overwhelmed by the positive reaction. The announcer returned to thank her, and she stepped off stage, mind swirling with relief and euphoria. Brian was there, waiting, and he gave her a quick, warm hug. "You nailed it," he murmured, and she clutched his shoulder, hardly believing the experience was real. Word spread rapidly about Amanda's talk. In the conference corridors, people approached her, praising her bravery, asking for more details about her story. A few even mentioned that her perspective reignited their passion for fighting workplace injustices. She exchanged business cards with startup founders, fellow developers, and even a journalist who wanted to feature her in an article about diversity in tech. Each conversation left her both exhilarated and a bit stunned. Mid-afternoon, she slipped into a quiet lounge area to catch her breath, sinking into a plush armchair. Sipping water, she let the adrenaline ebb. Just as her heart rate normalized, her phone buzzed. A flood of notifications on social media, tweets and comments praising her keynote. She saw people quoting her line about rewriting not just code, but personal narratives. It felt surreal, as though she'd stepped into someone else's life. Brandon and Helen found her there, wide smiles across their faces. "Have you seen the social feed?" Brandon exclaimed. "People are calling your talk the highlight of the morning session." Amanda shook her head, still processing. Helen clasped her hands in excitement. "You're an inspiration. I saw at least 3 young women corner you after your speech, all wanting to follow in your footsteps. This is huge." For Amanda, a quiet sense of gratitude welled up. She recalled the countless times she'd felt invisible, serving lattes to wealthy customers who barely noticed her. Now, not only did people see her, they wanted to learn from her. It was equal parts uplifting and humbling. She forced a deep breath. "I'm happy if I can help anyone else feel less alone," she managed. "I just never thought my personal struggle would resonate so strongly." By the day's close, Amanda was nearly floating as she walked to a wrap-up cocktail reception in the conference lobby. Brian caught her arm gently, guiding her toward a quieter corner by a large potted plant. "I'm beyond proud of you," he said softly, eyes warm with admiration. Amanda set her water glass aside. "I still can't believe it happened," she murmured. "I'm waiting to wake up." He shook his head. "No dream, just your courage on full display. This is only the beginning." She felt a rush of anticipation for what might come next. The world's reaction wasn't the point. It was that she'd freed herself from the shackles of past shame. Instead of being the poor girl accused of theft, she was now a rising developer whose words inspired real change. The final applause of the day still echoed in her mind as she left the reception. She realized she carried a new kind of vulnerability, one that came with visibility and responsibility, but she also embraced it. If facing her painful past in front of hundreds of strangers could spark hope for others, then her journey had real purpose. And that, she decided, was worth every tremor of nervousness she'd felt under those bright stage lights. The Monday following the conference felt oddly normal at first glance. Amanda woke to her usual alarm, scrolled through a few social media notifications, and dressed for work. Yet, a subtle change shimmered beneath the routine. She'd fielded dozens of messages over the weekend from conference attendees who connected with her speech. A few had asked if she'd consider future speaking engagements or mentorship roles. She tried not to feel overwhelmed by the attention and told herself to focus on her day job, writing code. At Innovate, the office buzzed with renewed energy. Several colleagues congratulated her, and even some managers from other departments stopped by her desk to offer praise. Amanda thanked them with a humble smile, then quickly dove into tasks for the financial planning app, reminding herself that she had responsibilities to meet. If she let the spotlight consume her, she could lose the momentum she'd worked so hard to build. By midday, she strolled into the break room for a snack. Helen was there, scrolling on her phone. "Your keynote's trending on TechNet blog," Helen announced, eyes wide. "They posted a write-up with highlights from your talk." Amanda braced herself, scanning the excerpt Helen showed her. It summarized her story respectfully, quoting lines about her path from barista to tech professional. Her heart twisted with a mix of pride and a pinch of anxiety. "It's all happening so fast," she admitted. Helen nodded in understanding. "You can set boundaries, you know. Just because the world is excited doesn't mean you have to answer every email right away. Pace yourself." Amanda took a breath, grateful for the reminder. "Thanks. I might need to remember that." The rest of the day passed in a blur of coding tasks and small updates for the upcoming product release. In between, Amanda snuck glimpses at her phone, noticing kind messages from strangers who'd faced similar injustices. One in particular caught her attention. A woman named Marisol wrote that she'd been fired from a retail job under false pretenses, and that Amanda's story gave her courage to pursue higher education. Tears pricked Amanda's eyes as she replied, encouraging Marisol to keep pushing forward. That evening, she returned to her Queen's apartment, dropping her laptop bag on the couch. Maya was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of pasta sauce. "Smells amazing," Amanda said, inhaling deeply. Maya beamed. "Figured I'd cook tonight. Celebrate your newfound star power." Amanda laughed, shaking her head. "Star power, stop. I'm just me." Yet she felt a tug of warmth at the thought that her simple words had resonated with so many. Over dinner, they chatted about ordinary things, rent prices, weekend grocery shopping, and Maya's own work drama. Amanda realized how grounding such everyday talk could be. After the whirlwind of the conference, returning to the normalcy of roommate banter felt like a safe harbor. As she cleared the dishes, her phone rang. It was Brian. She stepped into the hallway, pressing the phone to her ear. "Hey," she greeted, her tone softening instinctively. "Busy night?" Brian asked. She could hear distant chatter in the background on his end. "A bit, but I'm home now. Relaxing," Amanda replied. Brian explained that he'd been roped into a business dinner, but all he could think about was how well she'd done at the conference. "Your talk was the highlight for me," he said gently, "and I keep hearing people mention it. One investor even told me your authenticity was a breath of fresh air in a room of big egos." Amanda smiled, leaning against the wall. "I'm glad, but I'm trying not to get swept up in it all. My job is still to code." Brian's warm chuckle reverberated through the phone. "Don't undervalue your voice, though. The coding is important, but so is the way you connect with people." She felt a flicker of emotion. "Thanks for believing that." "I'm not quite sure how to balance it all yet." She heard him shift, "Maybe stepping outside for privacy. Take your time. Don't let anyone rush you. I just wanted you to know how proud I am." They spoke a little longer about the possibility of meeting some philanthropic groups that aimed to help young women enter tech. Amanda didn't commit to anything, but the idea sparked curiosity. After ending the call, she returned to the living room, where Maya lounged on the couch, flipping channels. I can't believe how much life has changed in just a few months, Amanda said, settling beside her. Maya nodded, eyes on the TV. You've earned every bit of it, girl. Before bed, Amanda worked on a small side project, a personal website that she'd started building before her suspension. She realized this site could evolve into a platform to share resources for people trying to break into tech, just as she once had. She typed for an hour, losing herself in lines of HTML and CSS. The act of coding something new felt like a return to her roots, quietly, steadily creating solutions. As midnight approached, she closed her laptop and stretched. Outside the window, New York's skyline glittered. She remembered standing at that same window weeks ago, questioning if she'd ever clear her name. Now she had a stable job, her name vindicated, and an unexpected wave of public admiration. Tomorrow, she'd go into Innovate, handle a bug fix, maybe help a coworker debug their code. Life continued. That was the beauty of returning to daily life after a transformative experience. The ordinary moments gained a new glow, and each routine step felt richer, anchored by the self-knowledge she'd earned. 2 weeks after the conference, Amanda found herself at a small community center in Brooklyn, a laptop bag slung over her shoulder. The space was bustling with teens from local high schools, each waiting in line for an introductory coding workshop. She'd been invited by a non-profit that Brian occasionally sponsored, dedicated to teaching underprivileged youth the basics of programming. Though her schedule was tight, she'd agreed to volunteer one Saturday afternoon. Stepping into a makeshift classroom, she spotted a row of outdated desktop computers along the wall. A handful of bright-eyed girls and boys, ranging from 13 to 17, were already seated, chatting excitedly. Amanda inhaled, remembering her own younger self, who had loved tinkering with tech, but never believed she could pursue it professionally. She squared her shoulders and walked to the front, greeting them with a nervous smile. "Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda," she began. "We're going to do some fun coding today." As she introduced the basics, variables, loops, and simple logic, some kids asked astute questions, while others giggled shyly. She circled the room, helping them troubleshoot. Whenever a student got stuck, she offered gentle guidance, recalling that she, too, had once stared blankly at error messages, unsure how to proceed. With each small success, like printing "Hello World" to the screen, she saw their faces light up. During a break, a 16-year-old girl named Kiara approached quietly. She wore a worn hoodie and kept glancing at the floor. "Miss Hayes," Kiara mumbled, "I saw a post about you on social media. You talked at a big conference, right? About how you started from nothing." Amanda's chest tightened at the memory of her keynote, uncertain how it would resonate with a teenager. "Yeah," she said softly. "I worked in a store, studied code on my own, then got a job as a developer. There were some rough patches." Kiara's eyes flicked up. "They said you were accused of stealing, but you never gave up." "That's really brave." Amanda felt a lump in her throat. She knelt a bit so she could meet Kiara's gaze evenly. "It was scary," she admitted, "but I realized I had to fight for my future. No one else would do it for me. Coding became a way to prove what I could do, not just what people said about me." Kiara nodded, tears brimming. "Sometimes I feel like people judge me before they know me. Hearing your story makes me want to try harder." Impulsively, Amanda reached out and squeezed Kiara's shoulder gently. "Don't stop believing in your own potential. You can go so far in tech if you work at it. I promise." Kiara offered a small, shy smile, then returned to her seat when the break ended. A wave of emotion washed over Amanda. She realized that by sharing her lessons, she was helping these kids bypass the sense of invisibility she'd battled for years. Over the next couple of hours, they built simple calculator apps, coded small animations, and played around with puzzle challenges. Amanda's spirits soared each time a student typed a correct line of code. The environment buzzed with that particular spark of discovery. By the end of the workshop, everyone was reluctant to leave. The non-profit's coordinator, a kind-faced woman named Simone, thanked Amanda profusely. "These kids look up to you," Simone explained. "Role models who've walked a tough path mean the world to them." As Amanda packed her laptop bag, she felt a gentle tap on her shoulder. Turning, she found Brian standing there, a quiet grin on his face. "I've finished my meeting nearby," he said. "Thought I'd drop in. Hope you don't mind." Amanda's cheeks warmed. "Not at all," she murmured. She glanced around the now empty classroom. This was amazing. "I wish I'd had something like this when I was a teenager." Brian took a few steps closer, lowering his voice. "You're a natural teacher. I could see how they hung onto your words." Amanda shrugged, smiling. "I'm just sharing what I know. It's funny, though. I feel like I'm learning even more by helping them." Her gaze dropped briefly to the floor before rising to meet his. "It makes me want to do more community work. There's so much talent out there, waiting to be nurtured." He nodded, placing a hand softly on her arm. "We can support that. I mean, if you'd like to build a formal mentorship or scholarship program, I'm sure we could figure something out, either through sterling innovations or another channel." Amanda's mind whirred at the possibilities. "I never thought about it that way, but maybe that's the next step, using my experience to open doors for others." They left the community center side by side, stepping onto a Brooklyn street bathed in late afternoon sun. Brian gestured toward a small cafe nearby. "Coffee," he suggested. "We can talk about your ideas." Amanda agreed with a nod, her heart feeling full. Her day, which started as a volunteer gig, had ended with a renewed sense of purpose. She recognized how far she'd come, from the timid woman who was too busy defending her name to even imagine helping others on a larger scale. As they sipped coffee at a wooden outdoor table, the conversation flowed from coding philosophies to social impact. Amanda scribbled notes on a napkin, brainstorming ways to connect underrepresented students with mentors. Brian contributed ideas about funding and partnerships, occasionally adding a playful tease about how unstoppable she looked when she was in planning mode. Sunset tinged the sky with soft pink, and a gentle breeze ruffled their hair. Amanda leaned back, letting contentment settle into her bones. For so long, she'd been fighting for survival and acceptance. Now, she was not only secure in her own identity, but also eager to pay it forward. The sense of gratitude mingled with excitement, overshadowing the old wounds from Belvedere's. She'd learned that a single supportive hand, even from a stranger, could shift someone's life trajectory. Perhaps she could be that hand for someone else. By the time they parted ways, the plan on the napkin had grown into a rough outline of a community-based coding mentorship initiative. Amanda hugged Brian goodbye with a new kind of certainty. She was stepping into a role she never expected, a mentor, a guide, someone who could spark change for others. It wasn't enough just to claim her own dignity. She wanted to share the lessons that had transformed her from a scared barista into a confident developer with the power to uplift others. Amanda tapped the microphone with a trembling hand, hearing a gentle feedback hum. She stood on a modest stage in a spacious co-working lounge, sunlight filtering through tall windows. This wasn't a major tech conference. Rather, it was a small community event hosted by Innovate and Sterling Innovations to celebrate the pilot program for the coding mentorship initiative she and Brian had worked on. The seats were filled with local youth, a few journalists, and employees from both companies who had volunteered as mentors. She took a slow breath, scanning the crowd. In the front row, Maya gave her an exaggerated thumbs up, while a cluster of newly minted teen coders sat to her left. Brian occupied a seat to the right, arms folded, watching her with a quiet, encouraging smile. Though she'd spoken at the grand conference weeks prior, this moment felt just as significant. She cleared her throat, beginning her speech about the importance of second chances, the power of believing in one's potential, and how mentorship can bridge opportunity gaps. The audience clapped warmly when she finished. She stepped off the stage, heart racing, and found Brian at her side almost instantly. "That was beautiful," he said, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "I'm so proud of you." Amanda's cheeks flushed. "Thank you," she managed. "I owe so much to you and Innovate for giving me this platform." Brian shook his head. "You created your own platform by standing up for yourself. We just amplified it." For the next hour, they mingled with guests, praising the teen volunteers who showcased small coding projects. Amanda spotted Kiara from her previous workshop, proudly demonstrating a simple game app. It dawned on Amanda that in just a short span, these kids had picked up the basics, thanks to encouragement and resources she once thought were out of reach for someone like her. Toward the end of the event, Maya cornered Amanda near a snack table. "You know, this mentorship program is basically your brainchild," she teased, popping a cookie into her mouth. "You're unstoppable now." Amanda laughed softly. "I keep thinking back to the girl who was too scared to speak up at Belvedere's. She'd be stunned by all this." Maya nudged her playfully. "People can surprise themselves when they find real support and real love." Amanda raised an eyebrow. "And real love," she repeated, cheeks warming again. Maya smirked knowingly, glancing across the room to where Brian was chatting with a group of sponsors. "You two have been dancing around this for months." "He looks at you like you're the only person in the room. Maybe it's time to define what you are to each other." Amanda took a steadying breath. "You're right. I guess I've been hesitant, scared it would complicate things or overshadow my independence." Maya patted her arm. "From what I can see, you're both strong enough to stand on equal ground. It's not about overshadowing, it's about sharing." When the crowd began to dwindle, Amanda slipped outside for a moment of fresh air. She stood in the building's modern courtyard, potted plants arranged around sleek benches. The sky above was a clear blue, the late afternoon sun casting a warm glow on the cityscape. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to find Brian approaching, hands in his pockets, an easy smile on his face. "Escaping the crowd?" he asked gently. Amanda nodded. "Just needed to breathe. That was a lot of socializing." He laughed quietly, joining her near a small fountain. A comfortable silence passed before she spoke. "Brian, I want to thank you for everything, for seeing potential in me when I couldn't see it myself, for standing by me even when accusations flew, but also for treating me like an equal." Brian's gaze softened. "You are my equal," he said simply. "I never doubted that." Her heart thudded in her chest, and she felt a wave of courage. "I care about you," she admitted, swallowing the lump in her throat. "For a while, I thought letting someone in would make me feel weak or indebted. But that's not how it is with you. You encourage me to be stronger." Brian stepped closer, the distance between them narrowing. "I feel the same," he murmured. "You've reminded me there's more to life than boardrooms and expansions. That real success means caring about people, not just profits." Amanda exhaled shakily, relief and warmth flooding her. She let her hand rest on his arm. "So, where do we go from here?" she asked, voice quivering with hope. A tender light sparkled in his eyes. "Wherever we want," he said. "Maybe that's building more mentorship programs, traveling to tech hubs, or just enjoying each other's company without drama. I'm in this for the long run," her chest filled with a deep sense of belonging she'd never known before. Me too, she whispered, blinking away happy tears. They moved almost imperceptibly closer, until Brian tilted his head and pressed a soft, lingering kiss to her lips. It was unhurried, comforting, an affirmation of everything they'd survived to reach this point. Amanda's pulse fluttered wildly, yet her mind felt remarkably clear. For all the chaos life had thrown her way, false accusations, job suspensions, heartbreak, she'd found a future built not on fear, but on mutual respect and genuine affection. Pulling back, they smiled at each other, breath mingling in the quiet courtyard. Somewhere in the distance, she heard the muffled hum of traffic and faint voices from the event inside. But in that moment, it was just them, grounded in the present, each strengthened by the trials that once threatened to break them. Later, they returned to the lounge area, hand in hand, to wrap up the event and say goodbyes. As Amanda mingled with the final few attendees, she spotted Kiara grinning widely at the sight of her holding Brian's hand. Amanda offered Kiara a playful wink, hoping to show that love and purpose could coexist without diminishing either one. By day's end, the building emptied. Standing by the exit, Amanda gazed around one last time, heart brimming with gratitude. She thought of the sorrow and injustice that initially bound her and Brian together, how it morphed into a deeper bond. Now, with her reputation restored, her career flourishing, and a shared commitment to uplift others, she felt fully alive. In that quiet, closing moment, Amanda Hayes stepped forward into a future that finally felt like it was truly hers, one where dignity, love, and the promise of tomorrow intertwined, creating an unbreakable foundation. And she held Brian Sterling's hand as they walked out, ready to face whatever came next, side by side. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Leave a like and comment below what you thought of the story. See you in the next video.